Check. Baldwin in motion. Jet sweep again. Baldwin breaks free. At this point, it's all academic.
Welcome to Sikkim 365 Radio.
After the penalty, a scramble, another big run for Bryce Young, and he takes it down inside the 10.
The Sikkim 365 Radio Friday show is brought to you by Bird Culchin Ford.
Empty gun for Bohannon. It's picked off. And a pick six for Max Tooley. BYU pouring it on early.
Sikkim 365 Radio is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Long count for two. Get it off cleanly. Blitz comes. He's flushed and looking and scrambling and leaping. It is in! Wow! Clayton Tune! Up and away!
Sikkim 365 Radio is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Speaking of impressive, Texas has been here in this first half. Touchdown, Hutchinson has number 2.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Roy to snap, Bramlett to hold to send it to free football. Snap, spot, blocked! Yeah! It's blocked! Shaheed Brown got his mitt on it! Fire up the war chant and plant the spear! Nose wind!
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
And good afternoon from Belton, Texas. A little less than an hour's drive from Waco, just south of Temple on I-35, and we are at a gorgeous place today. Absolutely just a beautiful stadium, Crew Stadium, on the campus of Mary Hardin Baylor University, and also Pete Fredenberg Field, couple of national championships. He's the one that was the only coach for until this season to coach the Crew, and they have been a just juggernaut in Division III. We are live. We appreciate Dylan for helping set us up, Paul Catalina and Craig Smoak. I feel like I'm like the mother hen standing above them, just the setup we have here. Ryan Davis is also here, Garrett Ross running the mothership. We're going to hear from Heisman Trophy winning quarterback and former BYU star Ty Detmer today, Grayson Grundhoefer today, and a few others. In fact, Aaron Suttles on Alabama, Texas. Taylor McHargue, and he'll join us on the game that he has. Cincinnati's a game he has this weekend. And then, of course, also Sam Bradshaw on many things, Baylor and BYU. But we do have some news that Pete Thamel from ESPN put out there today. There's been questions about Puka Nacua and also Gunnar Romney, two very talented, productive wide receivers for Brigham Young, BYU. And he is reporting they are out against Baylor tomorrow in Provo, Utah.
Yeah, and this is significant, and not just in the way of like, oh, bummer, these guys are out. These are a big part of their offense. Look, Puka Nacua last week in the first quarter alone put the game away from USF, and so not having him in that offense and then not having to have Gunnar Romney at least to take off some of that stress is huge for a game that is very evenly matched. And I mean, this is a good chip in Baylor's corner and a bad one for BYU that they're not going to have their two of their three best offensive players playing.
Yeah, this is almost an inexcusable game for Baylor to lose now. I mean, in my opinion, I think that it was already a game where I expected them to go in there and win. To what degree and what fashion, I'm not, predicting blowouts or anything like that, but I do feel good about Baylor winning. I feel great about them winning now because of these injuries, because they are a huge part. 60% of the offense. I think Pete Thamel had in that article their receiving totals so far this year. I know it was touch and go as far as like some of their availability last week, but it seemed like, okay, they were able to go out there and, especially Nakua play and thought that, if anything, it would be one of those things where you kind of set it up to where you ramp them up to be back in full for this game. I thought that was maybe what was some of what was going on, but apparently not. I mean, apparently it's just an injury that they're going to have to sit down and bog down and deal with this weekend, and that's really unfortunate for Jaron Hall. That's unfortunate for BYU, and it's fortunate in some ways for Baylor, but by no means can they sit there and just chalk this up as a W now. They still got to go out there and do it, but this is significant. There's no doubt.
Well, it is, because both of them, as you said, the percentage of production and yardage and everything else. And last year, 38-24, Baylor winning in Waco at 1.38-17. The deal, though, last year, and I was on a station, Paul, your favorite, KSL, out of Salt Lake City today. And the bottom line is this. Last year, Jaron Hall had a 58-yard touchdown run. Last year, the other 23 carries from BYU on the ground with Algier, and he was really good. 23 carries for 12 yards. They could not run the ball. So, Baylor ran for 300. They also then sacked, I believe, Jaron Hall 5 times. There were 7 tackles behind the line of scrimmage. They dominated the line of scrimmage. That's what it still comes down to. If Hall has time, no matter who the receivers are, but Baylor just jammed it down their throat.
Yeah, and if they can, mash them physically like they did last year, I think that's what kind of shocked me the most about that BYU game last year was how much more physical Baylor was. We knew that was what Baylor's calling card was. But the fact that there was this gap between the two of them, two really good teams, and BYU, last year had a really good. I mean, heck, they won the Pac-12, so yeah. They had a really good team last year. But the physicality was just a step above. And then you saw that again several times down the line. Baylor absolutely did it to Ole Miss. They did it to Texas. They absolutely did it to Texas, and that was their calling card. So has BYU closed that gap? I don't know. I mean, that's a big gap to close, because when you've got winners up front, which Baylor does on both sides of the ball, they're not going to lose many games.
Yeah.
Well, to put it this way, if you take out Nakua and Romney, there goes basically all of their receiving yards from this game last year. I mean, last year they ran for 67 yards. 15 of 33 yards, or 15 carries for 33 yards was Tyler Algier. So he's out. Puka Nakua had a carry for 9 yards. So basically their returning rushing is Jaron Hall, their quarterback, who had 25 yards on 8 carries for a score.
And one of those was 58, so minus 30 before if you take out the run. Yeah.
Yeah, and then receiving-wise, Nakua was great. Had 5, 168 and a score. And then Romney was second. He had 3 for 81. So you take those out, and that's 2/3 of their receiving total last year. But look at Baylor's box score, and all that's wiped out too. All of those guys are gone. All the receiving yards, all the rushing yards, even the quarterback, Gary Bohannon, he was the only one that played last year in this game. So
100% of the offense from either team last year.
Like all the offense is brand new, basically.
Yeah. All right, so that's tomorrow night, late night. We'll have our pregame not only on Sikkim 365 Radio, but also on 365 Sports. We appreciate you. Please like us if you're on, and also spread the word 365 Sports on YouTube. And we will be on KWTX, the local CBS affiliate, tomorrow night from 7 o'clock until 8:30 tomorrow with our pregame show. And then the late kick. There are so many other games to get to. So that's that. Pete Thamel again reporting Nakua and Romney are out for BYU against Baylor. There's also the story from Jason Shear. And I've tried to text back and forth with him. It was a text that Cole Barber, one of the partners, sent to us, that Jason Shear saying that the Big 12 telling Pac-12 schools, we are going to get this much more money than you. Now, whether it's $2 million or $5 million or $10 million. Jason has been usually pretty good with these numbers, and he's just not available to join us today because of some things he's doing with his daughter, which is understandable. But the responses are based on it's a firewall story that it's significant. Now, significant, is it 5? Is it 8? Is it 10? Is it what? And then we had the Yormark story from earlier this week when he talked about we want to expand out in the other time zone. We want to go into 4 different time zones. So those flares, javelins, the knife fight, whatever, turf war continues as far as those 2 conferences too.
Yeah, if anything, I mean, I don't know how much of Yormark is like talk versus walk. I do think he's a guy that walks, though, and backs up what he says, but he is certainly rattling the cages. Like the Pac-12 fans are already not big Brett Yormark fans because of just the disruptions that he's seemingly creating as football season has begun. And yeah, I mean, we don't have the exact details on what Jason's reporting exactly outside of just it would be more money, but I mean, it makes sense to me that it would be more money at this stage. I mean, if they were to add West Coast schools, they go coast to coast. I know some people don't see that as an advantage necessarily because of the fact that there's the extra travel. And, well, what if you got to go from, Tucson to Morgantown? And, there's some, things that aren't perfect in a coast-to-coast marriage. But, compared to here we're national, and here is the Pac-12, and it's like we are – the 3 coastal states, basically, there's a bit of a difference there. And, and if we're talking more money, in addition to that, you're talking more perhaps TV network interest. I mean, you're just talking more. You're talking more of everything. And so if you're a school that's straddling that line of what your future may look like, I mean, I think typically you're going to go for the better offer, but maybe regionality wins out ultimately. But regionality is really like the thing. Well, the only thing that's keeping that together.
USC and UCLA are going to go time zones all the way to play Rutgers and Maryland and Penn State. And
it's a pain in the ass to go from West Virginia to Norman. I know Tucson's further away and even further if you said it was Washington or somebody. But I do think this. I think right now, this is my personal opinion, that the Big Ten is content to sit and wait on what they're going to do until closer to their next TV deal, which will come up before everyone else's.
And closer to the ACCs.
And closer to the ACCs to see what they're going to do, because then they have more malleability to maybe take 1 from here, 2 from here, and say Notre Dame.
And also see how it works.
You see how it works.
See how this works with teams on the West Coast. And
so the decision for the Pac-12 schools then has to be, so are you going to wait until 2030 to go through this again, or would you rather lock in with another league and just move on? So that's the decision. Do you want to wait until the TV contracts are all up again and we go through this again in 7 years? Or do you say, you know what? Let's just pull the plug and go.
All right. Well, there's games tonight. We're going to get to that. One of them involving an incoming Big 12 football team. One of the notes about Yormark as well, and this was from Heather Dennis from ESPN. I didn't see all the quotes until earlier. It's been fantastic. I sensed that. And they said, when he was asked about expansion, so no, to answer your question, we don't have to expand. And yet he talked about he wants to be in the Pacific time zone. Again, we'll consider every and all options to better position this conference for the long haul. And I mentioned that today on a station in Salt Lake City. I do think that they're going to add, but I don't think it's imminent. If it is, great. But if it's not, okay. And but I don't think they're going to add just to add and dilute what they have. But if they add, that means they feel good about the numbers they're getting from Fox and also ESPN. At least whatever that discussion can be officially.
Well, here's the thing about going out west too: is where are you going to go to grab any teams really east at this point? You already did that the last go around. You did that with Cincinnati and UCF, and you got West Virginia, who's already been built in for a while now. But like east wise, I mean, you're running straight into SEC country in the southeast. And you're running straight into Big Ten country and ACC country in the north and southeast. So, yeah, I mean, there's only so many logical places to look at this point. And with the Pac, being on somewhat faulty ground, it's just logical. But I will say, who's to say that it's the Pac? I mean, who's to say that it's, not San Diego State? Or I don't know who else would be a candidate really outside of that, because they've, already picked up BYU. I couldn't see. It's not Boise. So it's, perhaps the San Diego could be the curveball, but yeah, there's only so many teams out there to really pluck away at this point, unless you're one of the big two who is biding your time for perhaps another territorial takeover down the line.
Speaking of San Diego State, Joel, who sent me pictures of their unveiling of the brand new stadium. What is it, Snapdragon Stadium? Yeah. Beautiful pictures. I know Arizona thumped them in that opener, but Joel, we're in the position today because we're remote. There's a few things we can put up. Garrett's done a great job with the Pete Thamel information and also with Jason Scheer, but we'll get those to everyone. Now, here's a note and a stat. This is 12 years. Since 2010, when Baylor broke a horrific bowl drought, it was like 16 or 17 years. They are 2-20 on the road against top 25 teams. Ugh. 2-20. The 2014 Baylor, they went into Norman and punched Bob Stoops and company in the mouth, and they couldn't do anything about it. Then the following year, they played Oklahoma State and TCU in 2015 and won. One of those two. They were 0-4 in 18. Of course, that was the year Rule got back into a bowl game. They did not play a top 25 team in Rule's third year that got them to the Sugar Bowl on the road. And then last year they were 0-1, the road game against Oklahoma State, and they just could not offensively. That was a tight, tough, physical game and a game that was winnable, but Oklahoma State was better the first time around.
Yeah, that was the 2014 game. We were all there. That was one heck of a performance. That was the end of Mike Stoops, I believe, that day. Like, not officially, but kind of was like, okay, it was it.
They toyed, and that was with Oklahoma leading at one point like 10-0 or something. Yeah. The quarterback went out in that game, but 2-20 in the 12-year stretch. They've had 1-11 during that time. They've had 2-7, but all the other years have been 7-6 and or better, including 3 Big 12 titles, 2 Sugar Bowl appearances, Fiesta Bowl appearance where they lost to UCF in 2000 and 13. 2-20. So this team on the road has not been successful against top 25 teams. Now, a lot of people struggle in the overall record, but 2-20, that hits you right smack in the face.
Yeah, it does. That Stoops game, though, was also the one where the Oklahoma media was trying to wrap their heads around Baylor about to win their second conference title in a row. And Bob Stoops just lashed out, was like, guys, I don't know. I had to do it. Guys, I don't know what I have to tell you. That's a good team. They won the league last year. They're going to win the damn league again this year. I don't know what we're doing here.
Well, that was a group that was accustomed to a certain kind of result. And when that didn't happen, it was like you took their toy away from them. And they did not know how to react up there to just how that went down. But yeah, that was an impressive victory. But you know, there's a reason why you can pinpoint the impressive road victories. You want to talk about why they're not at a level above where they are right now, and they're at a pretty good level. They're a level better than like 3/4 of the schools out there. You know, I think a lot of people would trade spots with Baylor at the moment, but why are they not higher? Because of what you just said.
Well, and the teams they play on the road, the teams they played on the road in 18, again, that was a team that just scratched and clawed to get to a bowl game. Oklahoma, Texas, West Virginia, Iowa State. Well, this is not the 18 team, but guess who they play this year, including Brigham Young tomorrow night. Now, here's it. And by the way, Paul's going to monitor the chat room. And the text line. I don't have I have my laptop for our game. What's the super chat? Yeah, I'm going to get to a couple more things.
Yeah. $2 super chat from Wick, which if for $2, it's going to have to be more than $2 for me to read that. It says HMHs. I'm not saying the whole thing. I don't say things that would make my father roll in his grave.
What does he say?
Okay. He said hook 'em horns. That's what he said.
Okay. Hey, tomorrow, I was thinking about getting up to go and play an early round of golf, and he's done in time, but the tee time's just a little bit later than normal, like a 7:30. I'm not going to go play. I want to be there to watch that and enjoy all throughout the day, Saturday college football.
I've had a rough couple of weeks as far as like I had a tooth that was bothering me and just the stress of football season and all that. And like tomorrow would be the perfect day to just like sleep. Mm-hmm. Like I just a sleep day. But you know what? I'm not going to sleep because I'm going to be up at 11 a.m. to watch Bama and Texas because I have to see how this goes down. Thank you for the super chat. Hook 'em horns. Best of luck. You know, I'm not super excited about the the potential result for Texas in this game. I do think Alabama is clearly the team to beat, but no, appreciate the support and absolutely hope you have a great time.
All right, we got another quick super chat.
All right.
Jacob says, Jacob DS50, is Boise State's best chance for the Big 12 to make the CFP playoff a couple times and become relevant again?
Well, that's not going to happen anytime soon.
They're a team that look. We like Boise, and we like Boise because we don't, go big school or bust on this show. Like, we have respect. Baylor's not a big school. I mean, it's really not. So we have respect for the smaller schools, but, we also do because Jeremiah Dickey is their athletic director. Yeah. And he was here at Baylor under Mack Rhodes up until a couple of years ago, till he got that Boise job. So we're rooting hard for him. But yeah, it's kind of a weird spot for them right now. Is Andy Avalos the guy, or is he not the guy? They had an incredible run, but there's been others that have caught up, and it's just a different world than when they were beating Oklahoma in the bowl game. Which one was it? The Fiesta Bowl.
I think it was Fiesta.
Yeah, the Fiesta Bowl. That's just not what it is anymore. And that Boise, uniqueness is kind of, you can find it other places now. It's not just like, who is this team with the blue uniforms and the blue turf and all that? Like, there's other teams that are running offenses like them now, and I think it's a tough spot for them. I think, they obviously got to play it out a little bit more to see if Avalos is the guy or not. I mean, that's going to be the most important thing. But we hope it works out. I don't know about Big 12. I don't think that's in the cards anytime soon, honestly.
All right, two things. Dana Holgerson in his weekly radio show, this was James Mueller.
But hold on, I'm sorry. But to answer your question, for any school that's on like an expansion watch or whatever, just go win. Yeah. Yes, that's all you can do is just go win games.
James Mueller on his Twitter account on a weekly radio show, Dana Holgerson, an important PSA to any Houston Cougars fans, saying that if they make the trip to Lubbock regarding the tortillas that are thrown through the stadium at Jones AT&T, do not, under any circumstances, eat the ones that are rolled up.
Oh,
all right.
Experience.
He knows. He used to coach there.
Yeah. So okay, and also Louisville's UCF tonight. A incoming Big 12 member plays tonight against Louisville. Louisville needs a win too, and Boise State. Speaking of which, the Broncos play at New Mexico. Those are two games on the college football schedule tonight. We'll get more into the Big 12. Baylor got a commitment from Rob Wright, a four-star guard, a point guard from the class of 2024 today as well.
Yeah, Boise State will win that game, no problem. What was the other one you said?
Louisville at UCF.
Well, I mean, UCF, that'd be a great win for them. And if you want to talk about hot seats and whatnot, let Louisville lose that game tonight, and they'll really ratchet that bad boy up out there as far as the hot seat goes.
One more, and we got to go.
Chris, Pitt, $2 super chat. Pitt versus Tennessee this weekend. Let's go Pitt.
Yeah, I picked the Vols, but and they're favored, and the game's in Pittsburgh, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I picked Tennessee as well because that high-powered offense. I'm not real confident in Keaton Slovis and company being able to match that. I do think Pitt can stem some of that, though. Like, I don't think they're just going to give up 60 by any means, but to what degree, I'm not fully confident enough. So yeah, I've got Tennessee by a slighter margin, but
in the Johnny Majors Classic.
Yeah, in the Johnny Majors Classic, they played like twice.
And I'd love to see Pitt win that game. That'd be awesome.
Now, coming up, if you're a BYU fan, a college football fan, Ty Detmer, former BYU Heisman Trophy winning quarterback, he'll join us in the next segment. Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports. We are in Belton at UMHB at Crew Stadium. Back with Ty Detmer next.
Looking for a great job with great pay and awesome benefits? Genco FCU is hiring. As a longtime Waco employer, Genco focuses on what matters most in our employees' lives, like pay incentives, bonuses, benefits, 401k plans, paid time off, advancement opportunities, medical, prescription, dental, and vision insurance, as well as short and long-term disability. Come join our incredible team today and make Genco your career that will work for you. Apply at gencofcu.org or at any branch location.
I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgan Ford. It's that time of year. It's football season, and BK Ford is a proud supporter of the best high school football teams in Texas, right here in Central Texas. BK Ford is proud to sell the #1 truck in Texas, the F-Series truck, led by our leading rusher, the F-150, 45 years in a row. Lock in your best price and rate today by custom ordering your new F-150 at BK Ford. Simple, easy, trusted. Experience better at Bird Colgan Ford. Let Camille Johnson Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one, commercial, farm and ranch, or residential. Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction with a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you. Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and two-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a Petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
In the market for a quality metal building? Since 1943, Pioneer Steel and Pipe has helped Central Texas residential and commercial customers with metal building design, panel options, building components, and trim options. Pioneer Steel and Pipe's residential line is energy efficient, offers low maintenance, reduces insurance payments, is impact resistant, and carries up to a 45-year limited warranty. In addition, they can also help you find a metal building contractor for your project. Pioneer Steel and Pipe with locations in Waco and Bryan and at pioneersboys.com.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
We are now joined by Heisman Trophy winning former Brigham Young BYU star Ty Detmer, Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports. Ty has been with us. We've been fortunate to have him a handful of times. Ty, thanks for your time. Baylor and also Brigham Young again. They met last year. Baylor was better. This year it seems like it's more of a toss-up, but not sure if you heard, but Nakua and Romney are not scheduled to play tomorrow night for BYU. And I know you have your own team to worry about, but how much do you think that impacts Jaron Hall?
Well, they've got some depth there. So, but I know Nakua and Romney both are favorite targets and guys that he's real comfortable giving them a shot down the field. So, may cause him to maybe have second thoughts of throwing one up, kind of a 50-50 ball. But, I think after last year, the little bit of the revenge factor will be into play, and they got him in Provo. So the altitude may take effect, but it should be a good game. I think everybody's looking forward to it.
Ty, what do you think about the program to this point as they get ready one more year as a major independent to jump in to the Power Five of what Kalani Sitake has built there and their ability to compete pretty much right away once they start conference play next year?
Yeah, I think they're in a good spot. They've recruited really well the last few years. I think they've got depth now at most positions and feel pretty good. Their O-line just kind of reloads every year. And so I think they're pretty solid all the way across the board and have that depth. So, playing a schedule like the Big 12, you're going to need that. At some point in the season, you're going to need those backups to step in and make plays. So I think everybody's pretty comfortable with that part.
Jaron Hall, obviously a player who, last year when we saw him against Baylor, he's kind of, still growing, and he's still growing even to this point. But what did you kind of see from him over the course of last year, over the offseason till now, as far as, being a year older, being far more experienced, being a leader, and all those things that come with being a QB1?
Yeah, I think, it's always kind of been the case there at BYU where that first season, you're the starter, you're kind of learning the role, you're getting comfortable with the offense, and the next year, it's kind of like riding a bike. You jump right in, and you're really comfortable, feel good about the offensive system and what's expected. And a lot of times you see the guys in their second year really have a big year because they're finally comfortable and they understand what's expected. And so he's in that situation right now. I know last year was a great experience, and you could just see him get better and better as the year went on. And he started out week one that way. So people are excited.
What do you think moving to the Big 12, not just getting in position with who they are and their personnel and numbers, what does it mean to your alma mater to be a part of the Big 12 starting next year?
Well, it's huge. I think they've tried to get in the conference, years before that and try to get in, and just for whatever reason wasn't happening. And so now that you're in there, there's a lot of little things that go into that. Guys can have all conference honors and different things like that. It allows you to create some rivalries within that conference and get familiar with your opponents. As an independent, you're jumping around and you're preparing for teams that you've never seen before. And now you get to kind of settle in and have some film on them from year to year and come up with, a little more of a game plan, knowing what you're going to see.
Ty, we on our chat room from Chris said that Ty Detmer beating number 1 Miami to open the 1990 season was one of the greatest games I've ever seen. I'm not a BYU fan, but I think we all were that day. Those runs that you guys had, do you have certain games and things that stick out to you more than others?
Well, obviously that one does. They were number 1 in the nation, and it was a big night in Provo. So that was kind of, to me, what college football was all about that night. The excitement of the fans, the student section, all those things, culminated there. And then we had some great games against San Diego State, Marshall Falk, and some track meets a couple of times with them. And so there's some games that stick out that you really enjoyed playing in and had a good time. And usually it involved high scoring games.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Ty, what do you think of the college football, the way things are going now? You're seeing guys being able to make money off their name, image, likeness. Like, back when you played, there weren't Ty Detmer jerseys in the pro shop, so to speak. But now that would be, something that could happen. The playoff is opening up. There's going to be more opportunities. There's just more opportunities across the board in general for college football players nowadays. I'm sure there's probably part of you is like, man, that would have been kind of nice. But what do you think of that for the young men and women as well who are having these opportunities?
Yeah, well, there were jerseys in the pro shop, but all the money went back to BYU.
Yep.
So,
Exactly.
It's good for the players. I think within reason, you got to be a little careful. Right now, it's kind of the wild, wild west with it all. The transfer portal, guys are jumping from school to school, and as a high school coach here, you talk to recruiters when they come in, and man, it's hard on the colleges, especially some of the G5 colleges where if they've got a freshman that comes in and makes an impact right away, he's jumping ship to a Power 5 conference, and they're like, man, we got to fill gaps in the transfer portal now. So they're not really looking at high school kids as much as they are hitting the portal and trying to find guys that, were highly recruited that might be able to come in and fill a spot and immediately play, as opposed to a freshman developing and being brought along a little bit slower. So, it's a tough landscape for coaches, but, it's good for the players that they're able to capitalize on some of this, but it's also, anything goes at this point. And you see guys leaving good programs to go to other programs because they're going to get more money.
You are still coaching. Your Coy is coaching, and, of course, your father was a legend, and I know you miss him. Everyone does. What's it been like? I know you opened up with a 20-point win. What about the team you have this year?
we've got a big group of seniors. So, at the high school level, that really helps. You got a little more maturity, and they're a little more physical than the younger kids. So this year we've got a great group of seniors kind of leading us, and we moved up from 4A last year to 5A this year. In Arizona, they do it a little different. They go off based on your past success. So 3 years ago, we were 3A, and so the school's really grown, and programs, in a good spot. Got a lot of kids playing right now, and we feel pretty good with the team we have, but a lot of work to still be done.
Ty, what's the fraternity of BYU quarterbacks alone like? I mean, you've got McMahon, you've got Steve Young, you've got Zach Wilson in the league now. Jaron Hall's good. I mean, I'm leaving people out, but that school has just set just a laundry list of really good QBs out into the world. Is that kind of something you guys wear as a badge of honor when you become that BYU starting QB?
We do. I think definitely that's the focal point, of the football team every year. The fans especially have grown accustomed to who's the QB going to be, and had a chance to do a little spot with Eli Manning on Eli's Place on ESPN Plus that came out this week, and Jim was there. And so, we all, when we're together, we have a good time, talk about it a little bit, but, it's always great to see the next guys coming and to see them have the success that you were able to have. So it is a little bit of fraternity that, guys respect each other and know, kind of what each other went through.
I'm glad you brought that up. I wanted to ask you, what was that experience like doing the whole Eli's Place thing?
It was fun. The Mannings, they like to have a good time with things, and they're not afraid to make fun of themselves. And Eli's a great guy, so we had a good time that day. And, keep it light, keep it loose. But, they're also very knowledgeable about the game of football, and they do their homework. So we had a good time.
Oh, Steve Sarkisian. I loved him.
Absolutely.
And here he is at Texas. What do you think about Sark?
It's great. I'm glad he's down there at Texas, and hopefully, they're turning things around. He obviously was a great player at BYU his senior year. They won more games than anybody, I think. And I think they were 15-1 that year. So, he did a great job in his own right. So he's one of those guys as well.
Ty, I know you have a game, and you got to run, and you've given us time before. We appreciate it. But one more thing. Paul talked about fraternity of quarterbacks at Brigham Young. What about that fraternity of winning nation's greatest player that particular year in college football, being a Heisman Trophy winner? Does it mean as much now as it's ever meant?
It does. It's still, you get to New York and I still see Roger Staubach and I'm still in awe. It's like that was my guy growing up and in San Antonio. I mean, we're huge Cowboy fans and so, it's still a lot of fun to be a part of, and to be able to rub shoulders with a lot of those guys that I grew up watching has been special. You got Earl Campbell, another guy I grew up watching and loved Earl. And so, I still a little starstruck when I get there from time to time.
Thank you very much for your time, as always. Ty, thank you so much. Good luck tonight. Ty Detmer, 1990 Heisman Trophy winner, and that game that they beat Miami, which was a huge game in BYU history. They won the national title in '84. That's the year they hammered Baylor. The year before was the game we had yesterday with Alfred Anderson when they won a shootout with Steve Young, 40-36 in Baylor, in Waco.
And thank you to whoever brought up Sark.
Yeah.
He does deserve to be mentioned.
That was Coleman.
He does deserve to be mentioned because you kind of rattle off, all of us do the same guys. But he's probably forgotten more often than mentioned. But yeah, absolutely.
Hey, I forgot Taysom Hill. I mean,
hey, let me tell you, who wants to forget about Taysom Hill? Texas fans. I mean, of course, he's such a unique player with what he does. But man, those back-to-back years when they in Provo and also in Austin, he went nuts against the Horns, which is really was on. And Gifford Nielsen was one of the first ones as well. There's been so many of them in that lineage of quarterbacks in Provo.
Yeah, who was the one they beat Oklahoma once too, right?
Yep.
I can't remember who the quarterback was that one. I do remember it was one of Brad Nessler's best lines ever. After they won the game, they had the quarterback and they could just see him mouthing, "Oh my God." And Brad Nessler said, "Oh my gosh."
Yes. Absolutely. It's a great time of the year with we're here.
Max Hall, that was
Max Hall.
Max Hall, good play for him as well. Of course, Zach Wilson.
Thank you, Earl.
Now with the Jets waiting to get healthy. We're going to get into a couple of other topics today that we have Grayson coming up, but what do we have? We have a little bit of time here. Let's discuss. I want to stay on pace so we're going to get to the baseball changes, Major League Baseball with some major changes, minor league baseball as well. The Bills hammered the Rams last night. I mean, beat them up 31-10. That's something to get into as well. We've gotten into a lot of what happened at the start of the show, and we still have more to come. Grayson Grundhoefer, Sikkim365.com. He's the recruiting analyst, but also football analyst as well. He'll join us here next on Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports.
At Allen Samuels, our great selection of new cars and trucks come with amazing deals and competitive financing that makes you ask, why shop anywhere else? During the Labor Day sales event at Allen Samuels, purchase a new 2022 Ram 1500 Crew Cab Lone Star and receive values up to $7,000, or choose 2.9% for 72 months and get $2,500 bonus cash and no payments for 90 days. Shop with us today. Allen Samuels in Waco.
Come by. Let's be friends.
TFNB, Your Bank for Life, is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texans are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB, Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy. And, I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
After my first car accident, I feared the biggest damage would be to my wallet. I expected a mountain of bills and a long, drawn-out process. But my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent was there when I needed her and helped me get back on my feet and in my car in no time. Instead of a hassle, I got reassurance and a quick recovery.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
It's summertime. There's picnics, reunions, cookouts, and so much to do. And Waco Custom Marketplace on Lake Air Drive in Waco is your home for the butcher shop that can help you with beef, pork, poultry, and seafood. They are spectacular at being able to deliver you whatever cut of steak you want. Bone-in ribeye, however thick you want it, that's great. They'll do it. Sirloin, T-bone, porterhouse, bacon wrapped filet. And of course, as I mentioned, they have pork, poultry, and seafood. Their Norwegian salmon is spectacular. Also, all of the sauces and seasonings you'll ever need, all the ingredients you'll ever need to make sure you have that perfect, flawless taste. So it's delicious whenever you take something off the grill. And a full-fledged bakery as well, with fresh baked bread and kolaches every single day. Up and down the aisle of Waco Custom Marketplace, you also have what you need, from knickknacks to snacks to more, at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, Waco Custom Marketplace.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. It's time for our weekly segment with Grayson Grundhoefer of Sikkim365.com. Brought to you by Pioneer Steel and Pipe, where customer service is their main focus, and best in metal, steel, and pipe for large or small projects, with 2 locations in Waco and Bryan. Family owned and operated since 1943.
365 Sports on the road on this Friday, week 3 of the Texas high school football season. We have a game tonight, 6:30 pregame Midway in Vandergrift. But we also have a huge weekend in college football. Grayson Grundhoefer, Sikkim365.com on Fridays, joins us, recruiting analyst, football analyst. And Grayson, the news of Nakua and Romney not playing according to Pete Thamel. Your thoughts about, obviously, how that affects Brigham Young's offense and what Baylor...
Yeah, I mean, guys, this is a massive loss for BYU. And I think, it's kind of evident in the betting circles. I think that's kind of one of the easiest places to start because BYU is getting close to being a 4-point favorite in this game. I think it got as high as 3.5. And then when the news dropped, it shrunk to 2.5 now. And I think it's going to continue to shrink. I think by game time, this is probably going to be an even bet. And I think that's smart. If you look at kind of what BYU has done and kind of where they've thrived, even in last year's matchup, they didn't have any success running the football against the Bears, but where they did have success was spreading the ball out, taking shots downfield, and winning one-on-one matchups against the Baylor cornerbacks and safeties. And without those two guys, it's massive. Like, I don't even know if I can, really explain how massive it is in just words, but just being the fact that, like, BYU's biggest advantage was the fact that they could spread Baylor vertically and take shots downfield and hope that the immaturity of the Baylor secondary with a lot of young guys and a lot of new guys would flash a little bit. Now it's going to be more like BYU's going to try to probably slow the tempo down, run the football, and just hope that their defense can get enough stops to keep Baylor within striking distance. But I think after this news, I think it's become pretty evident that Baylor should be the favorite in this game heading into Pro Bowl on Saturday night.
Grayson, one of the other swings in this game from this year to last year for BYU would have to be them closing the gap on the physicality. And most of those guys are back, plus you've added some people like Jackson Player. Do you think that BYU has closed that gap at all?
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the better questions because I think going into the weekend, you looked at last year's game and Baylor ran for over 300 yards in last year's game. And really the final score was 38-24, but it really felt like a 38-17 game because BYU scored with, I believe it was 1:50 left on the clock in that game. And so really Baylor dominated that game. So now coming into this game, I think the bigger thing is Baylor's going on the road. And BYU, I think, is going to be a little bit healthier than they were a year ago. Now, when Baylor played them a year ago, Baylor wasn't fully healthy either, as Terrell Bernard was still working his way back. Gabe Hall wasn't what Gabe Hall is now. And, of course, the addition of Jackson Player. So I still think Baylor has an edge there. I still think that the Bears are going to pretty much dominate up front. I'm not going to say that it's going to be, to the point where BYU can't run an offense because in last year's game, Baylor dominated on the defensive line. They had 5 sacks. They slowed down the run game, and still Jaron Hall was very, very effective. So I still think BYU can be effective, but if you just go off last year's game, they were effective because they took deep shots, and now they're missing 2 wide receivers who were very, very good for them last year. So while I think BYU is a great team, I don't know that they can afford to lose their 2 best receivers going into a week where they're playing a legit top 10 team like Baylor.
Grayson, Albany was what it was. I mean, let's face it. I mean, you could have rolled the Kyron Drones out there for the full game, and they probably win comfortably. Or name any other position you want to. Really, I mean that was what it was supposed to be. But what, if anything, did you learn about Baylor that you were curious about going in, knowing that the competition wasn't so that you get a good idea exactly of kind of where everybody is?
Yeah, so I think it was pretty clear that once again Baylor is going to be a run-heavy football team. And I think we got to see the depth at the running back position, which was definitely great to see. With Squirrel not fully back to 100%, or at least not at a point where Baylor was giving him a full workload against Albany, you got to see Richard Reese and Quaylen Jones, 2 guys who had great fall camps, and you got to see kind of the culmination of fall camp against Albany, which was great to see. But, going off of that run game, you saw these running backs have success, but you also saw Baylor take a lot more shots downfield. And I think that's going to be consistent with this team. You're going to see Blake Shapen take more risk downfield. Now, that may lead to turnovers, but at the end of the day, it's going to lead to more touchdowns. And last year, even Gary Bohannon had issues with turnovers. And while I think Shapen will have his fair share of turnovers, I think Shapen has a chance to get to that 30 touchdown mark throwing the football, which Gary wasn't even close to a year ago. So I think what I really learned was, this offense is really coming together to Jeff Grimes' vision, to where you're going to run the football really aggressively. You're going to be physical, but you're also going to take shots downfield and really try to exploit mismatches in the secondary. And so I saw that from Baylor in their first game. I think the other things were just the defense. The defensive line is great. We still need to see more out of the secondary. They got beat a couple times against Albany, so I'm very curious how they adjust and kind of, look towards these next few games and how they're going to kind of game plan around some of these younger guys. But I think overall there's a lot of talent there. And so I'm still confident they're going to have success. But I do think that's an area that Baylor will probably get attacked more so than not through the passing game, because I think their defensive line is just that good.
You can always lose a game early, and especially if it's a quality opponent on the road or even at home, neutral, whatever. Is this a game that doesn't mean they're going to win 9 or 10 or 11 games, but is this a game if they don't win because of other road games where they're going to be, that it all of a sudden, this may not just be a repeat of what they were able to get to last year or close to that?
Yeah, I think that's a really, really insightful question. And the reason why I say that is because going into this game, I really felt like Baylor was going to win, but I also sat here and said, if they lost this game, it really wouldn't doom their season. Like, they're going to be fine going on and playing in the Big 12 and playing some teams they're familiar to. And, losing a game early in the season to BYU is not that big of a deal, because I think BYU is a legit top 25 team. But with BYU having their 2 wide receivers out, I do think this becomes more of a must-win. And the reason why I say that is because while Jaron Hall is great, Jaron Hall is a great quarterback for BYU. He's going to have an awesome year. I think you take away his 2 top weapons, and that's the area where Baylor's weakest in their secondary. So you take away the 2 guys that I think could pose the biggest problem for the Baylor defense. I think this turns into a must-win game. This is not a game that Baylor should go lose. This is not a game that Baylor should really feel too threatened outside of the road environment. And I think this is a game they need to win, and especially for their psyche. And the reason why I say is because Dave Aranda, as great of a coach as Dave Aranda is, we all know he's a great coach, but he's talked about their road problems. And they're 3-7 since Dave Aranda took over as the head coach. And I know the COVID year, I know there were extenuating circumstances, but they did lose some games they should have won, like West Virginia in 2020 and Texas Tech in 2020 and TCU last year. Those are games they should have won, and they need to get better at winning on the road. And this is a matchup in particular that really favors them now with these 2 guys being out. So, yeah, I do think this becomes more of a must-win, because it's more of a statement and more of a moment to really show kind of what this program is all about and how they're not going to go on the road and take an opponent for granted. They're going to go and take a win, and Baylor really needs to do that this week in my eyes.
Grayson Grundhoefer, Sikkim, 365 Radio and 365 Sports. Who's better, the Baylor offensive line or defensive line?
Yeah, I think that, when you see the PFF rankings, you see that the offensive line, defensive line are both inside. I know it's the top 10. I think both might be inside the top 5 from last year. So I know a lot of people are really excited about both sides. But for me, this really isn't a difficult question at all. It's the defensive line. And it's because they're 8 deep there, and they have a bunch of guys who I think could be pros in the future. When you look at Apu and Gabe Hall and TJ Franklin and Jackson Player, you're looking at guys that can be legit NFL players. And you look on the offensive line, I think they fit the scheme great, and I think they're really, really good. And when they get Khalil Keith back, it becomes more of a contest, I think. But at current state, I really think the defensive line is one of the best in the country. And the fact that they can roll out, 3 defensive linemen and feel great, or sometimes even roll out 2 defensive linemen with 2 jacks, 2 outside linebackers on the field, that's a real luxury because of how good they are in the middle. And so I just think this defense line is going to prove some things tomorrow night. And I think that might be the biggest reason why Baylor will win that game in Provo tomorrow.
Grayson, it's been a little while since we kind of reset the table as far as football recruiting goes. We typically do that on the Bearcast, but just for everybody at home who doesn't follow it religiously, kind of just where is the recruiting calendar right now? Baylor, obviously, with a nearly full class at this point. Where do we kind of sit with all that?
Yeah, so 25 commits now. Their most recent was Caden Jenkins, the defensive back out of Louisville. So 25 commits. I think they'll probably add, I would think they're going to get to 27. So I still would think they're going to add 2 more. It's kind of going to be best player available. I think if you look at the guys they've recruited, wide receiver, maybe defensive line are 2 positions that you look at and go, okay, I could see them adding a player to either of those positions, really. And so kind of the calendar-wise, how that's going to play out is there was a dead period at the start of fall camps at the beginning of August, and it ended at the very end of August. So September 1st was when that dead period ended. That allowed the coaching staff to basically have free reign to contact the 2023 and 2024 classes. And so now it's really just about filling in those last couple spots. I think you're going to see a huge visit date probably on the Oklahoma State game on October 1st. I think there's going to be a lot of recruits there, probably a lot of commits as well. And you'll see them probably add some 2023 guys to come on that visit. You'll see a lot of 2024 prospects as well. And I think that's kind of a date to really target. And that's just kind of the reality of it, because they didn't have, big time non-conference matchups at home like they had with BYU last year. So I think that first conference home game against Oklahoma State can be a very important one as Baylor tries to fill out 2023. And then, of course, they're always mindful of the next class. And so 2024 is going to be very, very important as the season progresses and you start to see more visitors, especially once conference play arrives.
And finally, speaking of 2024, football, just kind of wait and see right now, as you just point out, in the process. But basketball, big 2024 commit today with Robert Wright III. Your thoughts on that pickup for Scott Drew and company, who have been on fire at least, last 2, 3, 4 cycles now at this point?
Yeah, this is big time. So he becomes the second commit in the 2024 class, joining Jason Osamoda for the 2024 class. And honestly, I was kind of surprised by this, as far as not necessarily that Baylor landed a really good point guard or a guy who I think is going to be a very nice fit for them, but more so that they weren't even more selective, because I could have seen them being extremely patient and just kind of waiting things out and waiting until they kind of got the look of every single point guard that they really were eyeing. And instead they went ahead and took the commitment from Robert Wright. And I think that signifies how much they really like Robert and how much he's a great fit for this Baylor program in general. Currently he's the number 48 player in the country according to On3, number 39 according to ESPN, and number 25 according to Rival. So I think he's going to be a guy that definitely moves up in the rankings as time progresses. He had really good offers. Maryland, Louisville, Kansas State, Gonzaga, Penn State, Miami. So Baylor's going out, winning battles with guys who aren't in the state of Texas. They're going to Philadelphia. They're winning a battle there with Robert Wright. And I think that signifies just the national brand that Baylor has become, to the point where, when they offer guys are going to really look hard at it and be like, hey, you know what? Maybe I should commit right now so that I secure my spot in that class, because I want to go win a Big 12 championship. I want to have a chance to win a national championship. And there aren't that many programs that have that in their back pocket. But I think Scott Drew and Baylor definitely do now. And I think that's why they were able to secure this commitment from Robert Wright as early as they were able to.
Grayson Grundhoefer, thank you. A football analyst, recruiting analyst, also on the Robert Wright III commitment. He called Scott Drew. His video, near the end of the video, he's talking about, he could tell he went to a memorial or a cemetery with a family member, Robert Wright I, and he's Robert Wright III, and it was a little bit of background where he's from. And then there's a call, FaceTime Scott Drew. And he had a shirt on. It's regular, I don't know. And all of a sudden, Drew answers the phone. He's sitting around a pool somewhere, and he goes, and he pulls his shirt either off or puts one on that says 100% committed Baylor. And Scott Drew goes, I love it. It's really, really cool. That was something that also was a part of his commitment video earlier today. When we come back, Aaron Suttles, that game in Austin, Alabama and Texas for the first time since 2009. The first road game against somebody in non-conference for Alabama since 2011. Aaron Suttles next on Texas and Alabama. Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports.
1, 2.
I'm in love with a man named Rudy. I'm okay with that. He knows exactly what I want. Keeps me coming back. Cooks breakfast, lunch, and dinner for me. Does the dishes too. I'm in love with a man named Rudy. Last name barbecue. It sure is easy to fall in love with Rudy's tasty oak smoked barbecue.
Next in line.
Boots add protection. Good boots help you climb better and move forward faster. And when your son or daughter steps into the boots of a U.S. Army officer, they also learn how to lead. In these boots, they'll gain more confidence with expert training in one of more than 150 occupational specialties. In these boots, they'll stand a little taller and lead a team with diverse backgrounds and areas of expertise to successfully accomplish whatever challenge comes next. In these boots, they'll earn respect with valuable experience from day one that will give them solid footing for success into the future. Highly qualified candidates who earn a spot on our team can receive comprehensive health care coverage, college tuition assistance, and a bonus of up to $40,000. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott, covering Conroe and Houston, 936-756-7717 or cam.heathcott@edwardjones.com. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive, North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year, whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible and rewarding challenge. Hi, this is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like our free First mobile app, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. That's the First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
Pressure from the edges. He's got man this side. That's complete. A spin, first down, touchdown. Tayshawn Holden.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Back in Belton, Mary Hardin Baylor tonight, high school football, Midway Vandegrip. But just a little south of here, there's this game that's getting a lot of attention in Austin, Texas, between Texas and top-ranked Alabama. Aaron Suttles, theathletic.com, covers the Tide. Roll Tide joins us on the show today. Aaron, I think you're more focused on the food and all of what they bring in Austin rather than this game tomorrow.
Well, guys, I'm 6'3", about 240 pounds, so I like to eat, and I have experienced a rich cuisine of tacos and great barbecue. Of course, in Alabama, we've grown up with great barbecue, but the tacos out here are out of this world, and it's just fun. This is the first time Alabama's played a true out-of-conference road game since 2011. So it's just fun not to have to go to Atlanta. No offense to Dallas, but I've been to Dallas a ton. It's nice to go on campus, even though Austin, it's not a traditional college town. It's somewhere new that fans are getting to experience. And this is why we love college football, to go to these on-campus games and experience something new. I mean, those neutral site games have been great for Alabama and their recruiting, but they had grown a little stale.
Aaron, I mean, last time we had you on, I sent you like a list of stuff, and I know you included some of that in your column today. Where have you been specifically? Did you get to Franklin? Did you wait in line for 4 hours?
Listen, I've grown up with some of the world's best barbecues. I'm not waiting in line at barbecue place for 4 hours. We did go to Terry Black, which was outrageously good, and I was impressed with the efficiency of the line. It was a long line, but you moved through really quickly. And I know another Alabama fans have seen that article. I saw more Alabama hats and polos and shirts than I could count at Terry Black today. So been really impressed.
Aaron, I was watching Steve Sarkisian's press conference, and I don't know, like, it just seems like on the UT side of things, we're just trying to get better, and there's respect, and, it's not about Bama, it's about us, and all the typical talking points. But for Nick Saban and Alabama this week, what's been kind of the theme, so to speak?
I think the theme is this is a test. And all respect due to Utah State. I think everyone knew that wasn't going to be anything where Alabama was ever going to be tested. I think this game, even though Alabama is a 20-point favorite, it's a hostile environment. It's not going to be friendly. It's going to be loud. And they know that even though they are 20-point favorites, that Texas has a lot of really good players that Alabama has recruited. So because of that, they know they're going to be tested and they're going to be pushed. And so that's really when you find out what you are. It's not when you play a team that you're favored by 42 points. When you play a team that can match up, who knows roster to roster. I think 1 through 22, Texas matches up fairly okay with Alabama. It's probably 23 through 50 to 60 where Alabama has a real distinct advantage. So I think that's been the message this week is this is why you play at Alabama. You want to be tested, and I think they're excited about the challenge and learning about themselves.
How much does the return of the tight end Latu help? The quarterback, who's obviously special, in Bryce Young, but how much does that help the offense?
I think it's big because he was a big red zone target last year. He didn't catch a ton of passes, but caught a lot of touchdowns. I think he had 7 touchdown catches last year, and that was as the secondary tight end to, as you guys know, Jaleel Billingsley. But Alabama's receiving core has turned over so much that they're not as top end heavy as they were last year with the talent of a Jamison Williams or a John Mechie, but they are much deeper, meaning they can throw the ball all over the place. It's going to be hard to target one guy. I think Bryce Young targeted 8 receivers in a little over a half of football last week. He threw 5 touchdowns. And so I think because there's less proven at the wide receiver position, Cam Latu is sort of a comfort, sort of a security blanket in a sense to Bryce, and him coming back, I think in particular in the red zone will be big.
Aaron, there was a funny moment this week in the press conference. Nick Saban didn't know about the horns down penalty. Do you think that will be enforced this week? And what was your reaction to his reaction that was kind of befuddled that it was even a thing?
Yeah, being in SEC land, obviously as college football fans, we know the back and forth with Oklahoma and UT with that and the Big 12 stance on that. This is a Big 12 officiating crew. So I would assume that Big 12 rules would apply, which means that's a penalty. Nick Saban's not a huge fan of his players talking any sort of trash. He says that just distracts you. You sort of let them get in your head when you do that. So he doesn't love that anyway. So I would imagine any histrionics with any sort of hand gesture would be frowned upon. But it doesn't surprise me Nick Saban doesn't know something. Nick Saban he's sort of in a way in his own little world. So I would imagine since that point, and since he knows it could be a competitive disadvantage if his players choose to do that, because Alabama's got some Texas guys on their roster, right, that might choose to do that. I remember when Greg McElroy beat Texas in the national championship, when he ran off the field, he did the horns down because he was a Texas kid and he, wanted to show them up to I guess, to a certain extent. So I would be shocked if any Alabama players did it, but if they do, they're going to be met by Nick Saban coming off the field.
So I know that, this is, like you said, it's like a 3-touchdown, spread, and Alabama's the heavy favorites and all of that. Texas, there's some moving pieces. Like we've seen just a little bit of Quinn Ewers. We've seen just a little bit of this and that. But is it Bijan and Xavier Worthy? Is that what stands out to you from an Alabama perspective? What do you think that they're looking at as far as the major challenges go?
I think Worthy could really be a mismatch player. Alabama, they lost their 2 starting corners from last year. They haven't really settled on their starting corners this year because of injuries in camp. They've played 4 guys against Utah State. They sort of view themselves as one having multiple starters, which is a good thing, but you haven't had a ton of playing time together. So that would be one. Listen, I respect the heck out of Bijan Robinson, and he's going to get his. I just think with Alabama, they're pretty good up front, and they were sort of resurgent in stopping the run last year. And if you haven't had a chance, go look up the name Jaheim Otis and go look Cole Kublik up. He's an ESPN analyst.
Yeah.
And he watched some film this week. Jaheim took out 4 Utah State offensive linemen by himself on one play. 4. This is a massive human being that has lost 70 pounds since he's been in the program. So I think, a running back, really what he does is predicated upon how well his offensive linemen block. So because of that, I would think Worthy would have a better opportunity to make his mark.
Well, I mean, he only weighs 370. He's like Siaka Ika at Baylor, right? Only
massive.
Yeah.
He's massive, and what's scary about him, he lost all that weight. He was well over 400 pounds this time last year as a high school senior. He lost all that weight. But then, defensive coordinator Pete Golden in Alabama said, he's got more wiggle than you would expect nearly a 400-pound lineman to have. So I'm not saying he's going to be rushing the passer like Will Anderson, but he's incredibly athletic. And if he gets the chance to play, you can't take your eyes off him. He's sort of a freak.
Well, there's always going to be wiggle when you weigh 400, but you're not talking about that. You're talking about
that's jiggle.
Yeah, that's jiggle.
That's jiggle.
Aaron.
You're talking about my jiggle when I hit the treadmill. That's the jiggle I have.
The game you mentioned as the first road test in non-conference since Penn State, it is amazing that they were able to play all those neutral games. Of course, they're also a team that a lot of those cities that host those type of games would love to have in their town. Was it always because of recruiting, or they just didn't want to play non-conference road games?
I think it's twofold. I think one, when it started, it was really about recruiting, about getting your product in front of kids in Atlanta, getting your product in front of kids. They've played this in Orlando. They've played it obviously in Dallas multiple times. It's about hitting those recruiting areas where you really want to make a mark. And then 2, if you look at it from a financial standpoint, you get a payday every year from ESPN or whoever's televising the game, rather than if you do a home and home, you're really only getting that payday every other year because you're missing out on the years that you're on the road. So I think that was part of it. But I think it reached a point, these athletic directors realize they're making, if you're looking at what athletic directors are doing across the country, they're really focusing on, it's not about like it used to be, how many fans can we cram into a stadium? It's about how can we increase the entertainment aspect for those fans. So whether it's, better Wi-Fi or cheaper concession stands or alcohol in stadiums, whatever it is, these athletic directors realize we're competing with television. It is so much easier than ever to sit at home and watch a game in HD and not sweat your what off and save all these hundreds and thousands of dollars to go to these games. But when you give fans better inventory, like next year when Texas comes to Alabama, that's going to be a hot ticket, and people are willing to put up with some of that, sort of aggravation and pay the expense of that to see these games. And I think athletic directors realize, hey, if we keep giving them up, serving them a diet of really bad games, these fans are going to get accustomed to staying home. And so I think that's what they're fighting. So I think that played into it as well.
Aaron, final thing for me, I was looking over the box score last weekend. I went to Tyler Lee High School, Robert E. Lee High School. They changed the name, and it's now Tyler Legacy. And so I was looking over the Alabama box score last week. I saw a very familiar name, Jamarian Miller, freshman running back, now at Alabama. I saw that he got a few carries. I was kind of surprised by that just because I don't see guys from my high school, playing at Alabama early on all that often. What's kind of the early reviews on him and just how he's settled in?
Well, I think the fact that he got into the game says a lot because Alabama's got depth at running back. I mean, they brought in Jahmyr Gibbs. You guys know about that, but they've got, Jason McClellan.
Yeah,
he's good enough to be starting in most places in the country. They got him. They got Roydell Williams. They got a former 5-star Trey Sanders. So they could have just played the backups and not gotten into the freshmen. But the fact that Miller got into the game, and from what I'm hearing behind the scenes, they really like him because they realize that next year, depending on what Jason McClellan does and Roydell does, they could be real thin at running back. So I think they're trying to develop some experience, but they're not going to play a kid if he's not ready. So the fact that he even got in that game says he's doing everything that they want him to do, and they're pleased with him. So that was a good astute observation by you. He's going to be one to watch in the future.
And he was a commitment to Texas, wasn't he? Up until, didn't he change his mind? I think he might have been a UT commit for the longest of times.
I think he was, and I think Jason McClellan the year or a couple years before was like an Oklahoma guy.
He was.
Some Big 12 guys that Alabama's been stealing.
Yeah, McClellan was phenomenal at Alito. There's no doubt he was a high level. All right, so I brought this up throughout the week on non-conference games. Texas and Alabama had this series set, and they're about to be in the same conference. We just don't know when. Texas Tech and Houston are playing. BYU and Baylor are playing, and both of those are games where people are about to start in a conference as well. Is that just ironic?
It's crazy to think about how this whole thing went down, and we think that Texas won't be a member of the SEC next year, but who knows? I mean, we can't make any guarantees. And when they're supposed to return that game to Tuscaloosa. And then I think Oklahoma's got a series scheduled with Alabama for the future too. That they'll just be conference opponents then. So it is wild all the change that we've seen in college football. I'm just glad that I'm walking around to me a foreign college campus, and I can experience something new. And I can tell. Listen, Alabama fans are going to be way outnumbered, and as it should because Texas fans are excited too. But the amount of fans that I'm seeing walking around, experiencing a new city. That's what college football is, and that's what it's been for the longest time. And I think we got away from that with the neutral sites, even though they serve the purpose. I'm glad to see these matchups that fans are excited about. For too long, I think colleges have ignored their fan base, and I know that television partnerships are probably, ESPN and Fox are trying to buy the sport, and they have to a certain extent. But this is why we like college football is this game on Saturday, and why so many people are excited.
Go get some tacos, man. Thank you, Aaron. Appreciate that. Appreciate your time. Aaron Suttles does a great job. Alabama, covers Alabama for theathletic.com and in Austin for that one. He's right. I mean, they still do overlook the fans too much, the TV, the realignment, all that. But I do love, and Texas has never been afraid to go play somewhere else in a non-conference game. They've played all of them. The year that in fact, I think the year they may have won the national championship, I can't remember when they went to Columbus. It was 05, I believe 05, where they went and they won that game in Columbus, a dramatic game. And then the next year, Ohio State won in Austin. I love big boy schools playing each other on their campuses.
Yeah, look, Texas and the Big 12, Texas and Oklahoma have been the two that have never been afraid to go and do that because they're Texas and Oklahoma. The other schools really kind of have. I mean, I know TCU's played LSU and Ohio State. They're probably third in that, but a lot of them, just don't schedule that way.
Baylor's just started doing that, and of course, trying to increase it with the Utah coming up and Auburn coming up and others, and of course, Brigham Young the last couple of years. When we come back, we're not done.
You can spend a little.
All right, let's get into the last night's NFL game. Bills just hammered the Rams, hammered them. Cooper Kupp had a bunch of catches. They couldn't run the football. Stafford was off. There's a lot of turnovers from both sides. But my goodness, Josh Allen was phenomenal for the Bills. And
so was Von Miller.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Von Miller with a couple of huge sacks. But what I thought I saw the most of was the fact that, and you heard them discuss this in the broadcast, how can they get downfield to loosen it up for the Rams without Odell Beckham? Because he was a threat for other defenses to have to deal with.
Well, it's not Allen Robinson. He's a possession receiver, and he was coming off a bad year anyway.
Woods was hurt last year, too, for them, right?
Well, and he's in Tennessee. So,
yeah, I know.
So he's gone. Is it Van Jefferson? Is it – or, I mean, they made it very clear. Sean McVay said Odell Beckham, they says name is still in the locker. I mean, they still have a locker for him. So they're basically saying, look, when you're healthy, they're going to sign him. But, yeah, they've got a little issues there. I think they'll figure out a way past it. But
it's hard to defend it. It's also that's a home game.
Yeah.
And you get drilled at home. They'll be fine. They're still a very talented football team.
I just think it's kind of interesting that just from a Cowboys perspective, I know they didn't play in that game last night, but the philosophies of those two teams fly in the face of what the Cowboys are doing, and those are two of the four best teams in the league this year. So
yeah, no, it appears as if they are. It appears as if they are. Now, the Major League Baseball story. There's a bunch of new rules, and they decided on these following rules. You guys discuss, and I will as well, some of the new rules. And a lot of this has to do with trying to speed up the game, trying to get that extra 10 minutes out of a game. They approved the pitch clock, 15 seconds when the bases are empty, 20 seconds with runners on. Here's the one, and you guys believe in a pitch clock?
Yeah, I think it's about time.
What if it's like 15, he hadn't thrown it yet?
I mean, I don't know. I think, though, that it had gotten way out of hand. Pitchers like Josh Beckett, who would just sit there and 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 slow the game down. I think
batters get out of the batter's box too, and
yeah,
who was the one that used to always do his wristband? Nomar Garciaparra 8 times.
Well, I mean, Mike Hargrove was the human rain delay.
That's also one where you can't step out of the batter's box more than once.
Yeah,
in an at bat. 2 fielders. This is the part on a defensive alignment that must include 2 fielders on each side of the second base bag with both feet on the dirt. I don't like it. The shift.
Yeah, I was always a person who said, look, then why don't you teach these millionaires how to hit the ball the other way? If they don't like the shift. But
you imagine then they wouldn't do this with Tony Gwynn or Rod Carew or others, Wade Boggs.
They don't.
They would hit 500.
But I mean, guys like, Josh Hamilton, who were dead pull hitters, that they would do that to them. And here's what I do think, though. Baseball is being smart about it because they're going to have to increase offense if the younger generation is going to watch, and offense is what drives it. Now, I love a great pitching performance, but I'm a purist. So they're going to have to increase offense, and making people's averages go up because you can't have a shift is going to help that. So it's a rule like the NFL would have made about, not, sawing receivers' heads off anymore. It's just a little bit different.
Was there also a rule discussed about having double headers at 7 innings?
I mean, I know they did it during the pandemic, but no, you don't do that.
I don't understand the infield thing. I understand why they're doing it. So what about when the game is on the line and you want to bring in an extra infielder, you bring an outfielder in the infield? Should they take that out too? What if you need to, that you see sometimes it's you can't give up a base hit.
Yeah.
They've changed it up, the amount of visits and amount of this and that. And to me, it's you have to change. Does football cut the game in overtime? The clock is running, right?
Well, but the NFL has, made stride. Look, college football is finally trying to cut down some of their time. They've changed some clock rules, but the NFL, is all about fitting into, a 3-hour window and a 3-hour window and a 3-hour window, as opposed to letting things drag on. That's what baseball's trying to do. So, not throwing over to the base 100 times, getting off the rubber every 2 seconds, and all these things that slow the game down. They're trying to speed up. Although I don't know if this will have exactly the desired effect that they want, because baseball, just by its nature, takes a long time.
A ball, if you're not ready, and if your pitch isn't thrown in time, and a strike against a hitter if they're not in the batter's box and ready within the 10-second limit. That's going to be interesting how they enforce that or how often they get right there on the edge as well. The banning of defensive shifts as well. And the engagements of how many times you can go to the mound, we've already been over that. That's already been almost in place anyway. 2022 rules changes have been solely the bailiwick of the league, and so now they have all of those that are now in place. So, Craig, you didn't say much about them. You don't care about any of those?
I'm just listening.
I know. Is any of them that like you go roll your eyes and go, I don't know why they're doing that, or do they need to do that?
I don't. It doesn't make really much of a difference to me. I'm not going to start watching more baseball because there are less pitching visits. I'm not going to start watching baseball because the shift has been outlawed. So they really make no difference to me whatsoever. So I don't really. I'm hey, cool. Like it makes really no difference whatsoever to how I watch the sport at this point, because it has nothing to do with the length or any of that necessarily. It has to do with the fact the team that I like is not very good at all. So I don't have a huge desire to go tune them on 162 times. I mean, the season, by my standards, should have been over 3 months ago, and no one would have noticed except for diehard baseball fans, of which they are dwindling at this point. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know what the recipe is for me to start watching more. If it's roiding guys up and having home run derbies basically every game, I don't advocate that. But the shift and like that means nothing to me. That means absolutely nothing to me.
Yeah, the only thing I like about the shift was that it was like, all right, I mean, this is it. It looks just dumb.
It gets to the point of being ridiculous, but if you're Joey Gallo and you're that futile at being able to hit it anywhere else in the entire field,
or
even if they give you half the field is open to you and you're still unable to do that, well, that's not the shift's problem.
Okay, but wait a minute. Go ahead.
Yeah, you're right.
Not the shifts. What about in football? They some do zone, some do 2 deep, some of them do 10. They do that in football.
Yeah,
you know what the offense does? They learn how to adjust to beat it.
I'll tell you, I've seen on more than one occasion a very slow big Hall of Famer named Big Poppy. When they would do the shift on him, he would just drop down a bunt, and he's on first base.
I mean, he would have to have oxygen when he got there. But
is that the best thing for the Red Sox to have him just on first base?
No,
but they had hitters behind him, so it put him in a bind.
Major League Baseball also voluntarily recognizes minor league players union.
About time,
or at least efforts to unionize.
Yeah.
With the Major League Baseball Players Association. That has been, you hear about some of the other sports where the revenue and TV and all that, and they want equal pay. Women's soccer earned it because they were better than the men and a huge deal. The WNBA, they're doing everything they can to give them more eyeballs, and they are in the WNBA finals coming up. DJ Carrington, by the way, I know the Connecticut Sun, they're in the finals, but
the WNBA argument, though, is just so ridiculous.
We should get equal pay.
It's so silly.
Yeah, minor league baseball pay can't be equal either.
That's like me saying that I deserve as much money as Pat McAfee. Why? Well, I'm on YouTube too. Like, I mean, that's basically the logic of it. Is that it's like, no, it also has to do like with him getting that type of money, pulling in the type of numbers that he does. So you want that type of money. Pull in those sponsors because you're pulling in those numbers. Yeah. I get tired of hearing about that. I have all due respect for the ladies and their league and everything that has to do with that. But the occasional piping up of we need more money, I just think is a silly thing that the media falls for every time, and it's a ridiculous argument.
I completely agree. Minor league baseball. That's not wanting more money. They're just wanting to have some things
livable.
Yes, exactly.
And WNBA, I encourage anybody to go watch Bill Burr's latest special. He's got a great bit on how feminism has failed the WNBA, and it's absolutely just dead on about it. But with minor league baseball, there's been too much of this. Like, look, if you're going to draft a kid in the 35th round and make him go to Pigs Knuckle, Arkansas to play an A-ball, you should at least make his conditions livable. If the only way that he can get to where he wants to go is to do that, there's no other, you can't just show up and be a Major League Baseball player. There's a path. So, if the circumstances are created that you have to go to A-ball and AA and so forth, well, you need to to make that livable and give them livable wages and not, it's the bonus babies and everyone else.
Kramer Robertson, who's been traded a couple of different times. He's, of course, part of the Cardinals organization, was a part of the Mets organization, talking to Randy. And, he made it to the league a little bit. He's been up there a couple of different times. So there's a few things that kick in for him. But, yeah, there's some cases where guys in the minor leagues at their home park in Memphis or wherever, there may be 5 or 6 guys living, whether it's an Airbnb, and we're not talking about a mansion. There's stuff. They're just basically stuffed in there. And the conditions have been very, very difficult. Now, I want to do this. A text from Coleman in Memphis. Hey, guys, love the show. Just wanted you to know again that Memphis has had a really rough few days with crime. Eliza Fletcher, the school teacher, killed when she was jogging. She was a Baylor grad?
Yep.
If y'all could let 365 Sports family to keep her family and Memphis in their prayers, it would be appreciated. And they've had other issues with crime. There was a reporter from Memphis who was on TV, and I saw the clip, and this is probably someone in her 40s or early, and she's a veteran, and her emotions got to her because of this, just one thing after another, plus just the awful nature of what happened to Fletcher, the jogger.
Yeah, it's bad. Memphis is where I was born. I was born in Memphis, Tennessee. And so prayers up for Memphis. And, it's just, I was there a year ago. And a little over a year ago when we were moving Amanda down, we stopped and stayed in Memphis for a night. And it was not because of COVID. They were a little bit more COVID cautious than Nashville, where I was right before. But the city was really nervous because the George Floyd verdict had not yet come down, and it was still deliberating. And the city was nervous about what would the reaction to that was going to be because of the tensions they had before. So it's been a rough couple years for Memphis, and that's a really cool city. It's a great city with a lot of great people in it, and nobody deserves this to happen to them, but especially not in kind of a wave like that.
Also, the Premier League games have been postponed. Match week 7 because of the passing of the Queen yesterday. So those games have been postponed. That came also a tweet from that earlier today from NBC Sports Soccer. When we come back, Taylor McHargue, ESPN college football analyst. He's next on the games this weekend. Baylor, Brigham Young, among others. Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports.
Baylor University is where lights shine bright. So let there be light. Let there be roommates and teammates, scholarship and championships. Let there be fresh starts and new traditions, fast friendships and lasting impacts. Let there be laughter. Let there be joy. Let there be light. Baylor University, where lights shine bright.
Don's Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don's Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit Marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Cars priced right both day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
Pete's
pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Hi, this is Paul Catalina. I recently got engaged to the love of my life, but the most important thing that I had to do before I popped the question was get that perfect ring. And I know nothing about rings. So I went to the wedding ring store, Boozer's Jewelers on Valley Mills Drive. I knew I needed a custom design, and that's exactly what they do. 9 out of 10 of their engagement rings are designed in-house. The entire process took less than a month, and they were great every step of the way. Great options on financing, excellent selection, and talented designers. My fiance and I get nonstop compliments on the ring. I only deserve credit for doing the smartest thing I could, walking into Boozer's and letting them work their magic. Your one-of-a-kind fiance deserves a one-of-a-kind ring, and that's what you get at Boozer's. Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store on Valley Mills Drive.
Welcome back to Sick 'em 365 Radio.
McHargue end zone broken up and caught. Touchdown, Jordan Taylor.
Wow. It's time for our weekly segment with ESPN analyst Taylor McHargue.
Taylor McHargue, former Rice quarterback, ESPN college football analyst, and joins us on 365 Sports. He has a game involving future Big 12 member Cincinnati this week after their tough game against Arkansas. Very competitive game, but falling a little bit short. Let's start with them. Taylor, what did you see from them? They just didn't have quite enough oomph. Obviously, replacing Ritter at quarterback among some other things. And your thoughts as you study for them this weekend?
Yeah, I think once you turn on the tape, you realize that they had a much better chance in that game than I think people give them credit for. The storyline after the game was, it never really was that close. But it ends up being a 7-point game, and a big reason why is Ben Bryant and that offense played well in the second half. And I think the biggest key is in the first half, they just missed some of their shot plays that in the second half they capitalized on. But this is still a very good football team. They've reloaded in a couple spots that, I know on the defensive side, they lost all the draft picks through the NFL, but man, they found a guy at linebacker people probably haven't heard of, Ivan Pace Jr. Get to know that name. He was the defensive player of the year in the MAC on defense, transferred to play with his brother. And man, he was all over the field against Arkansas, and he's a really special player for them.
Taylor, Texas and Alabama this week is the biggest, the game day game. That's the one everybody's got their eyes on. But is Texas ready to hang with Alabama, or will this be a thing where they have their moments, but Alabama's ultimately too deep?
I don't think they have a chance in this game. I went on record earlier today and said the same thing, and I don't say it in any sort of, look, I'm based in Austin, and selfishly, I think the city is more fun when Texas is good. So I would love for Texas to get back to being relevant. Unfortunately, they don't have the depth, in my opinion, to compete with Alabama, and I worry about their ability just to keep up, because Alabama's going to score. They're going to get theirs. And I just don't think this Texas offense is going to do enough to keep it close. I think there's a reason this line is 20 points right now. Excuse me. I think that feels about right.
Taylor, Spencer Sanders in Oklahoma State taking on Arizona State. Interesting quarterback matchup here just because of Arizona State, the transfer. But Spencer Sanders, is this the year that he can kind of limit the self-mistakes and be that player that he is when he's at his best throughout?
Well, I've talked about with you guys in the past. I remember going to was at the game at Oklahoma State when he played Texas, and he was the reason they were in that game late. Mm-hmm. And there's so much to like about Spencer Sanders, and the upside is so high. But you're right, the turnovers at critical points of the game have killed him. And this is hopefully a game where you can step forward and see, has he turned the corner? But I think it's going to take a body of work. It's going to take multiple games where you get in crunch time and have it be late in the third and fourth quarter and make sure that he doesn't have turnovers, because that's been his Achilles heel.
The Baylor and Brigham Young game up in Provo. News today came down. ESPN's Pete Thamel reporting that neither Nakua or Romney will be available for Jaron Allen, Jaron Hall, who's explosive. but will not be available. And, of course, Baylor has a lot of the young, skilled people gone from last year's game. Your thoughts about how that affects what BYU tries to do?
Well, it's really impactful, especially because the strength of Baylor the past couple seasons has been on the defensive side of the ball. And, look, this game is going to be really entertaining for a number of reasons. Number one, playing in Provo is difficult. And I don't know how many people have paid attention, over the course of time and paid attention to BYU night games, but they're going to have this place rocking. It's a really difficult place to play. And this is going to be a true test where if Baylor were to come away and win this game, I think you can start those way too early outside shot at a playoff type prediction and making another run at the Big 12 championship, because this will be a really impressive win if Baylor can go up. And I understand BYU does have a couple guys that they're down at their skill positions, but man, this is still going to be a really impressive win if Baylor can go up there and get a win in Provo.
Did you guys ever play there, Taylor, when you were in college?
We did not, thank God.
All right, you saw Texas Tech last week. They've got a big game against Houston, who had all they wanted from UTSA on Saturday in that triple overtime game that was an instant classic. What do you think about this one? And is Houston where they can close the gap from where they lost that game against Texas Tech last year, or where are they?
Well, Texas Tech, the biggest thing that jumped out to me was that Donovan Smith is – he was the backup, but when Tyler Shuck goes down, Donovan Smith is a very capable starter for Texas Tech. And that competition was close down the stretch, and we saw why. Donovan Smith comes in the second quarter and really played well. I understand it's against Murray State, but he looked really sharp, in command of their offense. For Houston, what I'm interested to see is how do they expand their playbook, and how do they create those explosive plays that they missed against UTSA? Because UTSA should have won that game. For U of H fans, you were outgained by about 100 yards and ran for, I want to say, a little over 100 yards total. Really wasn't a great performance on the opposite side of the ball, but Clayton Tune played up to what you would expect from your senior quarterback that is the leader and captain of that team. He did some special things late, a lot of it with his legs, and capped off by that 2-point conversion to win the game for them. But against Texas Tech, that Zach Kitley offense for Texas Tech is going to score. And so U of H is going to have to figure out a way to manufacture some more of those shot plays, those explosive plays, because I see this being sort of one of those classic South Texas shootout. U of H is going to have to keep up offensively in order to win that game.
Taylor McHargue with us, ESPN college football analyst. There were a couple of games that were of highly ranked teams. For example, Georgia home against Oregon, and they blow their doors off. There was the Notre Dame game in Ohio State that was tight really throughout, but Ohio State eventually pulled away. Did you at times blink when you saw what Georgia was doing to Oregon, even though they were pretty heavy favorites?
I thought that was, and I'm going to echo something that Jesse Palmer with ESPN said, because I thought it was spot on. I thought it was Stetson Bennett's most impressive performance at quarterback for Georgia. I thought he was lights out. And Georgia is miles ahead of where Oregon is right now. But even still, Stetson Bennett played really well and was efficient. He was on time. He was in total command of that offense. And you're just looking at two teams that are, again, name brand teams that everybody's heard of, these two schools. But the 5 stars and the 4 stars that Kirby has built up and recruited year over year, that's a departure from what they have in Oregon right now. And that goes back to what I was talking about with Texas. I think people don't give enough credit to what Alabama has on defense relative to what Texas is going to show on offense. And there's a gap. And that's why you see you'll have name brand teams and you see a blowout. And you're like, well, how does Oregon get beat by almost 50? Well, you've got, not only do you have the talent on those rosters like a Georgia, but they've been in the system for 2 or 3 years. And that's what you have with Alabama as well. The last thing I will say, I was impressed with Notre Dame's ability to turn that game into a rock fight, make it a defensive struggle, make Ohio State earn it, and then credit to Ohio State for being physical and saying, okay, fine, we'll run right at you and we'll win this the ugly way.
Taylor, Iowa State and Iowa this week is a huge rivalry. Iowa State has not really done much in that rivalry in the last, 7 years, I think. But Iowa just went out against South Dakota State last week and scored 7 points without scoring a touchdown. Is this Iowa State's year to break the curse?
God, I hope so. That was that Iowa game, I watched the end of it because you're part of you is almost hoping that they somehow lose. They deserve to lose that game. But you would hope that Iowa State could figure out a way to put enough out there on offense they can beat this Iowa team, because Iowa's offense, it would not surprise me if you see somebody else at quarterback for Iowa this week, number one. But completely inept on offense, ran right at them the entire game, accomplished very little. And if you see the same thing against Iowa State this week, they're going to get beat.
Yep, it is that time. It's that I love these games, Taylor. The evidence of non-conference games. We just had Aaron Suttles from The Athletic on Alabama's first road trip, non-conference road trip since 2011 at Penn State. The games on campus as a player, conference or non, were road trips. Obviously, you'd rather be at home. Were they just kind of unique and fun because you saw different places?
I always thought so, and I think the same thing now covering the sport. I mean, I'm in Cincinnati today. It was the first time I'd been to Nippert Stadium. I thought, hey, this is a great venue for college football. As a player, yeah, especially at a place like Rice, where going to play at Texas and a Baylor, those were our opportunities to play in front of big crowds, because you weren't going to get them at historic Rice Stadium. As much as I love my alma mater, we're not known for our capacity crowds. But if you're talking about at the highest level of college football, I can understand why, if I'm Alabama, I'm going to try and get these at a neutral site, number one, for recruiting, but number two, because I don't want to go play in this environment they're going to go into in Austin. Now, I think it's going to go in their favor because they're just a much better team, but I understand the thought process at the highest level. As a fan, I wish that they totally did away with the neutral site game. I wish you had more home and home, and you Alabama going to Texas, that's much more interesting to me than a neutral site where they played this in, a Jerry World or something like that.
Thank you, Taylor. Appreciate your time. Good luck with the game tomorrow. Cincinnati at Nippert, as you mentioned, one of the great settings as well, and what a run they had, the Bearcats, a year ago, coming off the loss in Fayetteville against Arkansas. They were there, but yeah, it almost reminded me of a game where they were never out of it, and yet you never felt like they were going to threaten you. They maybe a play or two, but they just couldn't get over the hump.
I kind of got a feeling from the Cincinnati fans that they were a little bit disappointed that Ben Bryant was the quarterback.
That's the whole thing. Yeah. The quarterback was not very good.
Yeah.
Like, that was the entire gist of the entire thing. Was that if you're looking for the main point, it's that their quarterback is nowhere close to Desmond Ridder. Mm-hmm. Like, that's the issue that they're going to face, is that right there. Not Sauce Gardner not being there. Yeah, other guys that left, that hurts. The clearest difference from last year to what we just saw was Desmond Ridder.
Mm-hmm.
That was it.
And he was really good, and there's a reason why he's not playing anymore, right? He's out of eligibility, but a pretty damn good talent. Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak. I'm David Smoak. We're live in Belton, Texas, the University of Mary Hardin Baylor. This is a beautiful, gorgeous campus. The facilities are amazing. The buildings are amazing here in Belton, and it's a Division III program that's won multiple national championships at Crew Stadium. Pete Fredenberg Field, the former coach, who was the only coach up until this year where he won multiple national titles. Ryan Davis also with us as well today. This is Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports.
We're fighting hard at Pickup Outfitters in our battle to end truck nudity. But it's not just about putting an outfit on a naked truck. It's about making sure you have the very best customer service. So we offer the Pickup Outfitters Lifetime Installation Guarantee. Over time, sometimes your outfit needs a little tune-up, maybe some tightening, adjusting, whatever. If you outfitted your truck at Pickup Outfitters, that tune-up is absolutely no charge for the remainder of the time you own that truck. We also offer free warranty assistance. If for any reason you need to use your warranty, you just bring it back to us and we take care of it. It just makes sense. I mean, operating without a promise like that would be like offering customer service in the nude. And if you've seen our staff, trust me, you don't want that. So do your part to end truck nudity by outfitting your truck, Jeep, SUV, or van at Pickup Outfitters, 220 Lake Air Drive in Waco, where we promise to serve you fully clothed. Check out our website, createacommotion.com.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of health care while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of health care has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed, everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Did you know that Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness is a partner of the city of Waco? Did you know that we are open to the public? Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers day passes to the public for only $10 a day, and we offer money-saving memberships. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers over 40 group exercise classes each week, including bar, yoga, boot camp, indoor cycling, and more. There are free weights, weight machines, TRX, rowing machines, stationary bikes, new treadmills, elliptical machines, and much more on the spacious weight room floor. Personal training available where you can be encouraged to grow. Sauna, whirlpool, tanning bed, and kids club. 17 tennis courts, 8 pickleball courts, youth and adult tennis and pickleball lessons. Waco's premier experience where you can help your mind, body, and soul. Visit our website at wacotennis.com. Call us at 254-753-7675 or visit us next to Hawaiian Falls on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
This is Sikkim 365 Radio. Text us at 254-339-1122. The Sikkim 365 Radio text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
High school football tonight, 6:30, Midway and Vandegrift. Vandegrift's quarterback, Buchanan, is actually a Midway baseball commit, plays catcher. And he's the quarterback for Vandegrift as they play Midway. Midway's 0-2, and they have been in a free fall now for just over 2 years.
Where is he committed to?
Baylor.
Okay, you said Midway.
Oh, Midway.
Yeah.
Well, that'd be hard. He doesn't have to be playing quarterback for Midway.
That's not legal yet.
Committed to Baylor. He's a catcher, but the starting quarterback as well for Vandegrift. They won their game last week, Cedar Park, 45-0.
Maybe his parents miraculously found a job in Hewitt. That seems to happen a lot.
You know what? This is a beautiful facility. It's absolutely gorgeous. They have basically the student union on the visiting side, which is a large building, and obviously, I don't know, is it like a cafeteria area or a study area or where people just hang out? Overlooks the stadium on the visitor's side, and there's also porches that you can stand out and watch the game. Gorgeous. And I don't know how many Division III. I don't know because I haven't been to many Division III stadiums, but I can't imagine anything being better than this.
No, they should host a lot of high school games here. It's great. They should host as many football games as they possibly have the staff to do.
It's better than where they played for a national championship like 3 or 4 years ago.
Oh, yeah, you went to that, yeah.
It's better than that stadium, like by a large margin. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
that was the national title site.
Yeah, well, I mean, those places bid for them. Yeah.
I mean, no, it's fine. It's what it was. But, like, compared to this, like, I'm thinking about how we were getting in and out of the press box, and it's just.
This is gorgeous. It's
kind of silly.
State of the art, the way it is. The press box is very unique, and obviously, as I mentioned, on the opposite side. Again, that's 6:30 tonight, high school football broadcast on 106.7 FM, The Eagle, and also right here on the same link, Sikkim 365 Radio, listen live.
I have to tell a funny story about the only other time I've been to this stadium. So when we were at our previous radio station, the owner of that station was trying to acquire the broadcast rights to UMHB.
Mm-hmm.
And he told me and another guy that worked there, I want you two idiots, this is a direct quote, to drive down to Belton and walk around the campus and see the ads, and then we're going to go sell to those people. Now, nobody can see it because I'm not pointing the camera out, and if I do, it's going to mess everything up. But, Smoaky, how many ads do you see around this campus?
I haven't seen one.
Yeah.
I haven't seen a single one. Nothing, no banners, no. I'm sure the scoreboards have theirs.
Yeah, but it was like Tuesday morning.
Like it's a Little League park.
It was like 10 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday. We drove around the whole campus.
Surprised he said idiots.
and all the campus and everything. And we got in the car and go, I don't know what we're going to tell him.
No, I
don't know what we're going to say.
You're not going to make it up. And I'm sure it was a huge moneymaker.
Yeah.
Like the stations we've had signals before.
We got a $10 super chat.
I know, but let's go back to what we started out with today. Baylor and Brigham Young playing in Provo tomorrow night. We'll have our pregame at 7 o'clock right here on Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports, and the local CBS affiliate, KWTX, the Big Bird. And this story from Pete Thamel from earlier this afternoon from ESPN, that Nacua and Romney, the two best receivers that Brigham Young has, production, all of that, are both out. His report earlier this afternoon from ESPN.com are both out against Brigham Young, against Baylor tomorrow night.
Yeah. By the way, the $10 super chat from Provo Cougar fan, Puka caught one pass against USF. 11 other receivers caught passes from Hall. Baylor is in self-denial if they think BYU's passing is going to suffer or slow down.
I don't think Baylor said a word. I think we have. I think others have. I think that it's been analyzed. But I don't think Baylor is dumb.
Okay, I think if you lose your top two receivers, no matter how many other receivers you have, and your example is USF, who is atrocious as a football team right now, like I think that's not all things are equal there. I think that you have two guys, especially Nacua last year, who made a dent in Baylor, like in Waco, like had an impact. And your secondary is perhaps your weakest position group. I think to have two veteran receivers like that at home who've already proven so much, I think is a big deal. And I don't care how many young freshmen and sophomores or juniors or seniors that you have, they are better than those guys. If they are, then maybe tonight or tomorrow night, then I see these guys and they are thriving, and I'm like, hey, look, I didn't realize how talented BYU's receiver group is, but no, it is a step down from what they had. If Baylor lost their top two wide receivers, I mean, the whole conversation this offseason has been about the fact they lost their top receivers and they're not going to be as good there. And last week we saw them play a little bit against Albany, but that's still a massive question mark. Like, you don't just step in and like not have a dent. So, yeah, I think I don't think it's like Baylor wins the game now because of that. But I think it absolutely makes a difference in as far as the way you view BYU, not for the team, but for people like us.
Here's what's going to make the difference. Can Jaron Hall have time, if in fact he can, to get the ball distributed around to whoever else catches it? That's it.
Yeah.
Can they run?
Was a part of it, but that is something that, I was flipping around throughout the week. 30-27, one way or the other. I'm usually a home team guy, but I didn't pick 30-27 because I knew anything about Nacua or Romney not playing. I'm a home team guy, but in this particular case, I did pick Baylor to win by 3. And who knows? Baylor still has to go out and protect their quarterback. They have to run the ball, which I don't see whether they can run for 300 yards again as they did a year ago.
I think Isaac Rex will have a big game, but yeah, I'm looking at the box score here. Chase Roberts, freshman, now wants to skip around on me, but yeah, the top receiver from last week was 3 catches for 41 yards, a freshman. Like, I'm sorry, that doesn't. That's not the same as Puka Nacua being out there. I think Isaac Rex is somebody who has got a lot of a lot of reps just as a sophomore. I feel like I've seen his name a ton when it comes to BYU. So I don't think they don't have players, but I think what you got to understand is more about respect for those guys than disrespect towards BYU.
If UT didn't have Xavier Worthy tomorrow,
yeah, exactly.
What would we say? I mean, that's the guy that you mentioned, Aaron Suttles.
They're really good, but they're not Xavier Worthy. Yeah.
There's a reason why Nakua and Romney were starters, because they were their better players and also incredibly as well experienced.
When Alabama lost John Mechie and Jamison Williams last year, was that not the difference in them beating Georgia a second time?
It might have been. There was a chance because Williams was having a monster. You
lose two guys like that. One's a first-round draft pick. One's a second-round draft pick. You don't just all right.
Doesn't mean Georgia doesn't win, but it sure impacted the game.
Yeah,
sure
it changes.
Yeah.
It changes a lot.
Yeah, it did.
But we do appreciate it, and we appreciate BYU and the fandom there, and understand you got respect for your other guys. So we'll see. I mean, if their wide receiver core goes out and balls out, then I'll be the first one on Monday afternoon to say, like, hey, you were right. Like, those guys are just some guys that were – a group of other guys were just as good. But, yeah, I'm looking forward to just seeing this game at this point tomorrow night.
All right. Appreciate it again, all of you who watch us. We're in a different location because we're not in the studio. We're at this beautiful stadium, as we mentioned, in Belton, Texas, which is about 50 minutes north of Austin and about 45 minutes south of Waco. Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports.
If you're out looking for a great selection of new cars and trucks, then shop Allen Samuels in Waco, because we have some of the best deals in Central Texas that will put you in a new vehicle and driving away with confidence. During the Labor Day sales event, you can take your pick, a new 2022 Dodge Charger or Dodge Challenger, and receive 0% for 72 months and no payments for 90 days. If you're a first responder, you get an extra $500 off your purchase. High-quality vehicles from a dealership with a hometown feel. Allen Samuels in Waco.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and two-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a Petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who, as children, had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old, and they come every 6 months, and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8-year-old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to keep kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Let
Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
Through the air, Chapin into the end zone. Wide open for the touchdown is Hal Presley. 38 yards. Baylor pats the lead.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Ben Erlinson, who'll navigate you through today's financial climate. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Got an email this afternoon, and this is from Clint Wright. Good morning, guys. We texted yesterday evening on the text line and asked us to send pictures via email. Garrett, I'm going to try to forward you some email of pictures of out from their trip up to Utah and some Baylor fans. I'll tell you this one thing. This whole being Goliath and being the one marked on the calendar is weird as far as for BYU's opponents. Look forward to seeing everyone on Saturday night. There's a lot of Baylor fans up here. Hope you have a great show. That's from Clint Wright.
Well, thanks, Clint. That's part of the deal when you're the Big 12 champs, Sugar Bowl champs, and top 10 ranked. I mean, that's being, partially Goliath. So would rather be that than be the little underdog hoping to be David ultimately. And that's, a role they've had plenty of. So yeah, they're moving their way on up. Now they got to keep on moving up and eventually establish themselves up there as best they can. But it's a role that you better get used to.
All right. We've discussed Alabama, Texas, Brigham Young, and Baylor. There's some chat room questions and or comments that we're going to get into as well. There are other games. Texas Tech and Houston is a very, very intriguing game because of course, the fact that they are going to be in the same conference. Plus, they had that dramatic game last year as well when Texas Tech was down and rallied from behind to win the game. Couple of you got a super chat, Paul, as well, the $5 one.
Yeah, we do. Hold on, let me pull it up here. Mansa Musa, $5 super chat. 37-27 Baylor. BYU won't be able to run the ball. He also said hashtag Go Noles. So
there you go.
You happened to pick the one that said Go Noles.
Well, it's
all that $5. Money he won from last week.
Yeah, I picked Baylor to win this game beforehand by a slight margin. I think I feel even better about it with the two receivers being injured. I understand that there are others that could, fill their shoes, but that doesn't explain the running game. Like, you pointed out there. I mean, that was something they rushed for 67 yards last year, something like that. I think Baylor's defense up front is better than they were last year. So I'm having a hard time outside of just launching balls and like missed tackles and things like that of where the points are coming from, so to speak. So that's why I think those receiver injuries are so huge. But yeah, I think that's about kind of the same ballpark I was in. I don't think they're going to blow them out or anything like that. And I definitely think it's not going to be like, easy peasy 1-2-3 right from kickoff. I think it's going to be a game where they eventually just pull away ultimately. But yeah, that sounds about in the right wheelhouse.
Yeah, and look, this is going to be the first big test for Baylor's new skill position players, and we don't really know how they match up against Power 5 talent.
If they lost their top two receivers, they couldn't because there's not really any right now. Yeah. It's like that's how non-experienced they are at receivers. So, if you want to look at holes, that was an advantage that BYU had, was having more experienced guys. So, yeah, I think the fact that Baylor's got so many young players that are going to be in that, altitude and late night kickoff and raucous crowd, and just there's going to be a lot to have to adjust to and get used to that not a lot of these guys have really dealt with. So that's a question mark for sure. I think it's going to be a really valuable experience either way, but ultimately I think that where you look at the veterans for Baylor, they're all along their lines, their offensive and defensive lines, and I just think that's a huge advantage and a steady in presence, and just having that power in the trenches, I think is going to be what ultimately propels them more so than any skill guys or anything like that.
Who last week? Georgia obviously routed Oregon. Who last week's maybe their win opened your eyes more than anybody else as, okay, that's what I thought, but maybe better? Florida beat Utah.
Florida.
Yeah, Florida. Yeah.
That one to death. Anthony Richardson in Florida. I don't know off the top of my head.
I thought Arkansas would beat Cincinnati because of what we even discussed, the quarterback change and inexperience at that position on the road against a really pretty darn good SEC team. But that was important for Arkansas because last year was a 9-4, a lot of expectations in the division where there's all these other, problems with.
There'll be more of those. Like I think Tennessee is going to beat Pitt this week. So if that happens,
that game's in Pitt and Tennessee is favored.
Yeah. I think Pitt beating West Virginia was about exactly as how I thought that one would go.
If you look at the rankings and try to, there's not one really.
Yeah.
There's really not Florida was the one that was the big, whoa, my God. And I guess, and then Georgia, Oregon, and you said, you already mentioned that one. So, that
game was over immediately.
That was pretty much it though. Like everything else was how you drew it up, really. There was, maybe some teams dropping a spot or two, but those were the two by far biggest examples of dramatic drops. NC State didn't look very good, but they have expectations. So I kind of expected them to not look very good because that's NC State for you, right? That's kind of their story, so to speak. So, I think Devin Leary and company will bounce back, but I think those are the main
Ohio
ones.
State, Notre Dame? We got into that Monday. We didn't dig around into it too much. I think most of us thought Ohio State would win, but there were thoughts Notre Dame might get just thumped. And they were up 10-7 at halftime, and then they just could not get much done. It wasn't like Ohio State went out and just drilled them like Oregon did. What Georgia did to Oregon. I didn't expect that. But, the Ohio State offense with who they are, thought maybe if they're going to win that game, it might be 34-20 or that. But, hey, their defense, again, I don't know how good Notre Dame is on offense right now. Defense with Jim Knowles, they give up 10.
Yeah, that one. Actually, you know what? That is a game that did not go as I thought it was going to go.
There were thoughts and a lot of comments and analysts and others that thought that could be a blowout.
Yeah, or that, but Notre Dame, Taylor used the right term. They made it a rock fight for as long as they could make it a rock fight. But Ohio State just has too many weapons, and a bad game for them is 21 points. So that means that your bad game has to be 22. Your great game has to be 22 if you make it a rock fight. So, yeah, Notre Dame's going to score a lot more points than they did against, Ohio State probably every other game this year. But that one did surprise me a little bit because I thought it would be, and I thought Notre Dame would probably score more. I thought it would be more, even a blowout might have been, 45-24.
I really wasn't surprised by Notre Dame. I was surprised that Ohio State had a little bit of issue offensively. That was a surprise to me. Not anything really Notre Dame did or did not do. That's kind of what I ultimately expected from them.
All right, we've discussed pretty much all of the games. Sam Bradshaw is going to join us at the bottom of the hour to give us some of his X's and O's. He does a great job of breaking that down. Tomorrow, we go on the air. Our latest pregame start, I think, ever. 7 o'clock is our pregame with Baylor and Brigham Young, being 9:15 Central, 8:15 Mountain in Provo. And our pregame show will be on tomorrow at 7 p.m. KWTX on TV, and, of course, right here.
We've started at 7 a.m. plenty of times.
Yeah. We have when it's 95 and brutally hot and humid, and we've done it when Texas and Baylor played to close out Floyd Casey Stadium, and we were freezing to death.
Yeah.
Inside of a tent with heaters on.
It's going to be nice at 7 p.m. Look, I don't have to leave the house until about 5:50 to get to the studio in time. I'm thrilled.
Yeah. What do we have the rest of this hour?
Sam Bradshaw at 5:30.
Okay, let's go over the bit. Like we've talked back to last weekend. Let's talk about like the Big 12 games this weekend. If you don't mind, let's get into some of those contests.
All right, we did that a little bit yesterday. We'll do it again tomorrow, but let's do it here. Big 12 type of a way we grew because of what was going on within the Big 12, either those coming or going.
Because we have touched on Tennessee, Pitt, and this schedule is not as good as last week's schedule. It's not even close to being as good as last week's schedule. So, I think we have kind of touched on the big national games, so to speak.
Among the top 25, who is the highest game or the lowest total of combined rating? If you're ranked 5th and 9th, that'd be 14. Baylor's 8 and 21. Brigham Young, that's 29. Is there one of those? Because Texas, Alabama is a logo and against a team that's run college football for about 10 years.
And
there's also the throwback to 2009 and the championship game and all that. Is there a game like that in the top 25 this week?
Not really.
Doesn't seem like it. No. It does not. Like Notre Dame and Ohio State, no matter what we thought, was 2 top 10, top 5 teams that played. Okay, in the Big 12, we've discussed Baylor and Brigham Young, not ad nauseum, because we're going to do it again for a little bit, plus tomorrow as well. Texas Tech, Houston, we've discussed that one quite a bit. The Iowa State-Iowa game, to me, is
Kentucky, Florida.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
20 and 12.
Yep.
That's outside of that, though, there's nothing. It's BYU, Baylor.
That's still 32 compared to 30 for Brigham Young, but that's the second highest, I guess, 2 ranking teams. Yeah. I don't know. Florida coming off that win. Are they mature enough to handle it and take care of business again?
I think they're going to handle business with. I think the thing here is that Kentucky's a little overrated in my mind versus. As far as coming out of last week, you go and you handled your business against Utah. Anthony Richardson's there getting Heisman hype out of nowhere out of week 1. So, I feel just fine about Florida. I think this will be a good game, and I think Kentucky's got a puncher's chance. But this is the same Kentucky that kind of pees down their leg a little bit whenever they get close to a situation like this. You know what I mean?
Yeah. How about Billy Napier if he starts 2-0 against Utah and then beats Kentucky in their own division?
Yeah. And look at Kentucky's record in the swamp in their lifetime. They have like a win.
This is like Baylor.
It's like Baylor and Stillwater.
But it's like Baylor coming up and you still got to beat Oklahoma. Yeah. And you don't do that with regular. You beat some of the other teams and you start to grow and you evolve. But getting over that hump, that's a whole different thing. And I think for Kentucky, Florida's been one of those humps for them.
And in the Gators' most rock bottom seasons, Kentucky was still a gimme for them.
Yes.
That's what I said about Iowa State now, guys.
That's a good segue.
There's something that's weird about that, even if Iowa State looks like they should win this weekend.
Yes, I understand that. But if Florida went out and scored 4 points,
they would have lost.
Then, that's the thing. Okay, I understand the Iowa dominance of Iowa State, but look at that number last week. Look at that. That is ridiculous. That is a slap in the face to modern football. I'm not joking. That is ridiculous that's where their offense is at this point. It's embarrassing.
I think South Dakota's just better.
No, it's embarrassing, and it's ha-ha because it's Iowa and all of that, and that's just what they do or whatever. But no, it's not. It's embarrassing. And so if Iowa State can't beat a team that's all they could muster offensively, then I don't want to hear anything about Hunter Deckers and he's going to be better than Brock Purdy or, we can replace this running back. We're a running back factory or, Will McDonald. If you got all that working in your favor where you can just replace stars and you've got a bunch of stars or you got a good number of stars that are back and you can't muster to outscore the team that couldn't even score a touchdown last week, when are you going to beat them? When are you going to do it?
But people hyperventilate against there's certain teams.
Well, then they don't need to be taken seriously as far as any big-time conversations.
All I'm saying is there are some rivalries where people just throw up on themselves.
I get it, and I understand, and I understand where you're coming from, Florida, Kentucky. But my whole point is I don't want to hear that excuse for Iowa State anymore. Mm-hmm. If you want to be taken seriously and you want to be taken as far as the big contenders in the Big 12 and all that, you got your attention last year and you didn't like it. And your head coach basically said, well, we never asked for any of this. We just want to, shake hands after the game and be respectful and whatever it was that he tried to, dismiss the not so great season that they were expecting. If you want to be that, that's fine. Just go lose to Iowa no matter what Iowa is or can be or whatever. We'll just chalk that up as an L every year because it has been. You're right. But at some point, you got to stand up and strap up and go there and take care of business. And I understand that game's on the road, so that does give me some pause. But if you can't score points against, Last week,
it's not whether they score points. It's because Iowa probably dummies that thing down. Can they score points? If you give up points to Iowa this week, then you got to look at yourself and go, what the heck? Yeah.
Yeah.
There were some great Nebraska teams that couldn't beat Oklahoma. There were some great Florida State teams, as good as they were, that couldn't beat Miami.
That's because of that stupid H at the end of the field. Whoever invented that thing.
There have been some of those, and I picked Iowa only because it just seems like no matter what. And they've also been pretty good.
They're 3.5-point favorites.
Yeah.
I mean, they're picked to win the game.
And that's enough. That's your home field advantage, and that's really all that is.
I just think that's. I understand. I understand all of it. I don't need to be explained why they're favorites or why you feel the way that you do. I get it. I'm just saying, Iowa State. Like, come on now.
Yeah.
Like, when are you gonna do it?
And the Big 12 could use it as well, and all conferences can. They were 9-1 last week. Obviously, I think every game they played, they should have won. But there is that. Yeah, they need to beat Iowa. Baylor needs to go on the road, win a game against Brigham Young. Texas and Alabama would be monstrous. And again, no one expects that, but it would be a monstrous deal. Let's see.
That'd be great.
Back to the Big 12.
Cyclones.
Oh, it would be fantastic. Back to the Big 12. Oklahoma, Kent State. I think that's nothing there.
Well, Oklahoma's schedule is going to be really boring to talk about this year outside of Big 12 play.
And that's kind of weird because usually they've got one.
Now
they do. They got Nebraska.
Yeah. Well, that we can blame Nebraska.
What are you giggling about, Paul?
I mean, that's their big non-con.
Yeah.
Though. That's it. They do. It's Nebraska. It's coming up. Next week?
God. Last year they played them off their heads. I mean, they did, but they, of course, played everybody. It seemed like that way last year. Oklahoma State, Arizona State.
Arizona State's made some interesting change, like Emory Jones, the old Florida quarterbacks there, and they've had some new additions, but I'm not real high on them. And you know what? It's not even really an Arizona State thing. I'm just higher on Oklahoma State. So I don't think that Arizona State's going to be able to keep up with them scoring wise. You look at what the Cowboys are doing now, and it's very much back. I mean, around the league, they're one of those. It's like, let's score as many points as we feasibly can. And last year that was not the case. Last year was, hey, let's hope Spencer Sanders doesn't throw 3 interceptions, and turn the ball over, and let's just play great defense, and whatever he can give us and score, him and the plethora of, playmakers that they had, that worked really, really well for them. Their defense is not that same defense. They're not a terrible defense, but they are not that dominant defense that they had last year. And I don't think they expect them to be. So yeah, it's back to, they're in a good groove. They've got good players. And I just think that they're more of an offensive mind once again. And so I just think that they're going to blow past Arizona State ultimately.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I'm curious to see Arizona or Oklahoma State play in a game like that one last week was such a weird outlier. It's 51-15.
That reminded me of like the Big 12 was for about 6 or 7 years until recently. You had more of those than you didn't.
But yeah, I mean, then all of a sudden, like, Central Michigan just keeps scoring and scoring and scoring. And like, it's hard to know what was real, right? What's real about that game last week in the second half? Like, what was Central, like, is Oklahoma State, did they power down the defense and then, that kind of got away from them a little bit, or do they have issues on defense? Well, I don't really know.
All right.
Let's see them in a game
Kansas
where
State,
they don't
Missouri.
have to do
That game was not quite like they almost got beat territory.
No.
It was like they had to panic a little bit.
Yep.
Yes.
Kansas State and Missouri.
This is a game. If K-State wants to be that darling, that belle of the ball, they went from, everybody's trendy, no one's talking about them pick, to remaining trendy, but everybody's talking about them. Like, they're not a sleeper pick. They were for a couple months this offseason, and then they ultimately were everyone's sleeper pick. So, I don't think anybody's changed their mind on what kind of year they expect from them. We didn't see jack from Adrian Martinez really last week. Like, I mean, as far as thinking that he's going to be wildly different from, the Nebraska days, or that he's going to totally transform them. And I'm sure some of that was intentional and just kind of the way the game played out, but it was still the Deuce Vaughn show ultimately, and a little sprinkling of Malik Knowles. And that's how K-State's really done it the past couple of years. So, I think they should win this game, especially given the expectations, but Mizzou's not going to be a pushover. I'm just not as high on Eli Drinkowitz and them as I am as far as, what K-State's got going on.
All right. West Virginia, Kansas at a Big 12 conference game.
Kansas,
I have a feeling about this. I'm not saying KU wins.
Kansas will play better than they have in the past, but West Virginia's just head and shoulders above where they are. And I think this will be a good bounce back week for West Virginia after that one. Now, I think part of the reason you might have that feeling is there are a lot of emotions that they left out in Pittsburgh last week in that game, and you don't want to let a team beat you twice, so to speak. But I just think that West Virginia's got too much talent to for Kansas to stop. And the Kansas beat Texas last year, but Texas was in kind of a way of where they kind of didn't have anything to play for. The locker room had become completely poisonous, and
well, it was a rivalry game.
Yeah.
You never know.
But I don't think that's
the records
necessarily going to happen. But I would expect to see Kansas play a lot better.
Tarleton and TCU, kind of like Kent State, Oklahoma. You got something to say about?
Yeah, I think West Virginia wins. I think West Virginia should win. Otherwise, you feel kind of okay coming out of the Pitt game. You're pissed that you lost. You should have won that game probably. You had your opportunities, and just a couple of things went wrong, and you find yourself on the losing end of the backyard brawl. If they lose this game, that's not Neil Brown getting fired before the season's over with, but that's really not going to be good for him because I think that there was things to like last week with JT Daniels and all these other guys, some of them young, some of them, we've seen a little bit of, but he's got some good players around him, and they could very well should be 1-0 in this game, like I said. So, I think West Virginia beats Kansas. I think Kansas will at least make it a more respectable showing than what we've typically just chalked up as like, oh, they'll win by name your score. I don't think it's necessarily that easy of a cakewalk for West Virginia.
All right, we've touched on all of them. We've mentioned Baylor. We've mentioned Texas Tech, Oklahoma State, Kansas State, TCU, Texas, West Virginia.
TCU Tarleton, there's nothing to say really there at all. Name your score there. I mean, obviously, no Chandler Morris in that game, so we'll see how that kind of plays out here over the next few weeks. But TCU, that was a nice win over Colorado. I mean, they kind of just slowly squeezed them to death. They were up early, not by huge numbers in the second half, just blew it open. Colorado, talk about open jobs this offseason. Yeah. Carl Durrell, I mean, God bless him, but I just did not see a whole lot of I'm not throwing the Big 12 invitation out to them immediately based on what I saw last weekend. That's not why you would, but if it was, then they certainly weren't going to invite.
They have a nice TV market that they're close to.
Yes, exactly.
That's what's keeping that kind of interest there. But, the Colorado, since they've joined the Pac-12, I mean, of course, anybody who's joined a new league, even going back to Arkansas, what's Arkansas really done in the SEC? Has it really worked out for them?
Nobody that I know of that's left the conference, other than TCU early on in the Big 12. How many have gone to another conference during the last 10 or 12 years and gotten better?
Mizzou was impactful for the first couple of years, and they basically just faded into non-existence. I mean, outside of the SEC bubble. And I like Mizzou. We run into Mizzou people all the time because they basically run journalism along with Syracuse. But they're an afterthought to me for the most part now. Not being disrespectful, I don't think about them anymore because they're not in the Big 12.
They get lost in the shuffle.
And they're not. And they're lost in the shuffle of the SEC for the most part. So. There's not a lot of great examples of teams that just, go in and establish themselves right away. It's a hard thing to do.
All right. I want to get into this is a story that was a couple of 2 or 3 weeks ago. The Brigham Young volleyball and the racial slur accusations. We know that South Carolina's head coach, Don Staley, canceled a game with Brigham Young. There was this immediate. This was said, a racial slur to a Duke volleyball player. It just went, that was it. That happened. And the fan in question was banned from going to other Brigham Young events forever, I guess it was. There was a lot of discussion on this. Brigham Young says they found no evidence of racial heckling during the volleyball game against Duke last month, and what the school called an extensive review of the incident. In fact, the fan who was banned is now been readmitted to being able to go to whatever games they want. Review of all available video and audio recordings, contacting more than 50 people who attended the event, including some Duke athletes and staff members. The review included security camera footage and footage from Brigham Young TV with broadcasting audio removed. We see this happen. It's not constant, but we do see stories where people it happened. And you want to believe if a young lady feels like she might have been offended, but and I'm not questioning whether it just seemed like That's it. You're dead. Kill him or her.
I think that some of BYU, also just people that already have a bone to pick with
Sure they do.
BYU because of just various things, is just like, oh, of course, like they just like if you were to come out with that story about Baylor, I bet you 90% of media would just be like, yep they did it, and then boom, they move on, and they're just like, oh, we were wrong after the fact. That, oh, sorry. So yeah, that's not surprising to me.
I think the thing that I wondered about when you started hearing this was, okay, so let's say it did happen. And then there's, how many, 40 or 50 people. I mean, it's a volleyball game, so I'm sure it's not, overly packed, but I don't know what they do in Provo. But there's got to be enough people around, unless this person was just sitting by themselves spouting, these epithets that I bet there was more than a 40 or 50.
Yeah,
but I mean, like there's enough people around this person
here if something happened.
Like, look, I can tell you right now, if there's 4 people in this room, if somebody jumped in this room and yelled the N-word, we'd be like, whoa, and like it would end it. So that's why, even in places that don't have the best histories and all that stuff, like, come on, it's 2022.
I just didn't understand. Like, to me, it was just hard to wrap my head around the fact that the way it was portrayed was that it was not only going on and nobody was doing anything about it, but that it kept going on throughout and everyone just sat there and did absolutely nothing. I just found that so hard to believe in any scenario or setting other than like a Klan meeting in the Deep South, like where, you know what I mean? Like who would just sit there?
Tom Homo, there will be some who assume we are being selective in our review. To the contrary, we have tried to be as thorough as possible in our investigation. We renew our invitation for anyone with evidence contrary to our findings to come forward and share it, despite being unable to find supporting evidence of racial slurs. In many recordings, interviews, we hope that all of those involved will understand our sincere efforts to ensure that all student athletes competing at Brigham Young feel safe.
It's hard for me to wrap my head around just dozens, if not hundreds of people sitting there and allowing that to occur, because it was portrayed to have sounded like it was the entire match this was going on and everyone just was sitting there. And, so I didn't believe that from the very beginning. Just for that reason, it was hard to wrap my head around. But then you look into it, and really the catalyst to it being as big as it was the godmother of this player who was allegedly harassed. She's now locked her Twitter account after being very public in the initial aftermath of it. Now the Twitter account is locked, and I don't know how long that's been the case. I just noticed that. And apparently she might be running for office of some sort. So, I mean, I don't know.
But by the way, you know what? We hear that part, and rarely will this be reported the way it was originally.
That's part of the thing.
It happens.
Once it's out. Point. Yeah, once it's out there, and you can never bring it back. By the way, 5,500 fans at the volleyball game, according to
that's a ton. Yeah.
And that just didn't add up to anybody, I don't think, in the very beginning. And everybody did believe it at first, right? Everybody's like, okay, well, let's stop down and let's see what happened. And then they did, and they came out. And I know some people still won't believe that. They'll think it's like a conspiracy or something, but
or it's an internal review. It's not a third party.
And so you're never going to win, but I think that end result makes sense to me.
2 questions. One, we did mention Rob Wright committed, the young man from Philadelphia, committed to Baylor, a 4-star point guard for the class of 2024. Craig, random question off the text line. What are your thoughts about what's going on with the AEW locker room?
This is going to be one that goes way over most people's heads. But for those who do understand AEW, All Elite Wrestling, and all the drama in their locker room right now, I think it's a work. I think that they are trying to drum up interest, and they're doing a good job in some ways of that. I do think it's gotten like to the point of where like there's too many and then this happened also in this little backstage locker room fight, to the point of where it starts to kind of sound almost fake to me in a way. So yeah, I think it's a work to drum up interest. I do think there might be some like legitimate bad beef between some of the parties involved, but I don't think it's what it is on the surface of like a legit fight and people are getting fired and all that. I think it's a work.
All right, now Dana White has shuffled. I know we got Sam. UFC 279. There were some behind the scenes scuffles and egos and testosterone levels at the weigh-in. Nate Diaz and Tony Ferguson, Khamzat Chimaez, what's his name? And Kevin Holland are now the top card.
Okay.
Whatever that means.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not Mr. Religious UFC these days, but I mean, that's that's a sport that, continues to thrive and continues to be, just this animal all its own. And they've been able to replace stars over the years. Like it's going at, if you were to say Conor McGregor's going to fall like a falling star and a complete just irrelevance, basically, at the height of his powers, and Ronda Rousey and whoever else you want to mention, they just replace these folks time and time again,
and find new ones,
and find new stars, and build new stars, and create new stars. And it's amazing that they're able to do it the way that they do it. And I think it's always fun to watch whenever I get the chance. But
here's another storyline. Diaz is now fighting Ferguson because his original opponent missed the weight by 7.5 pounds on Friday morning. Diaz understandably chose to fight, did not want to fight an overweight opponent.
Yeah, no, that's totally understandable. I mean, that's a security danger thing, if anything else, as far as having somebody that's a bit too big. So, Nate Diaz, Tony Ferguson, that'll certainly bring some late interest for those who maybe are not as in tune with it to see that, because that's certainly been, a thing in the past. So, I'm always down to watch Nate Diaz.
All right, when we come back, Sam Bradshaw, S11 on the site, Sikkim365.com, the premium section. If you're not a member, you need to be or should be. We wish you were. And subscribe. It's worth it. All the inside information, and not just about Baylor athletics, but much more. 365 Sports, Sam Bradshaw on Baylor and Brigham Young next.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
TFNB, your bank for life, is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB, your bank for life. Member FDIC.
Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgan Ford. It's that time of year. It's football season, and BK Ford is a proud supporter of the best high school football teams in Texas, right here in Central Texas. BK Ford is proud to sell the #1 truck in Texas, the F-Series truck, led by our leading rusher, the F-150, 45 years in a row. Lock in your best price and rate today by custom ordering your new F-150 at BK Ford. Simple, easy, trusted. Experience better at Bird Colgan Ford.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Baylor University is where lights shine bright. So, let there be light. Let there be roommates and teammates, scholarship and championships. Let there be fresh starts and new traditions, fast friendships and lasting impacts. Let there be laughter. Let there be joy. Let there be light. Baylor University, where lights shine bright.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Welcome back to Sick'em 365 Radio. It's time for our weekly segment with Sam Bradshaw of Sick'em365.com.
Sam Bradshaw analyzes the football that we see each week. Baylor, their opponent, how they match up, vice versa. Joins us, Sick'em 365 Radio and 365 Sports. And Sam, it's great to have you on. Yet again, the stuff you do on the site is phenomenal. We appreciate this segment. So, how does the news of Nacua and Romney not being available tomorrow night, according to Pete Thamel and ESPN, affect what Baylor does or Brigham Young does?
Having me on, and if it's true, which any pregame injury report I always have a healthy dose of skepticism on. If it's true, it's giant. Last year, Baylor was able to absolutely swarm the BYU run game. And as a result, that left some single coverage for both Nacua and Romney, and they had 8 catches for 249 yards. And that was the vast majority of the BYU offense, other than one long quarterback keeper, where either Petrie or Bernard busted an assignment. So it's a massive impact on the game. It impacts how Baylor can call the game against BYU, and how it impacts BYU is it means that guys like Chase Roberts or Keanu Hill have to stand up, have to step up for them. And then it might impact their play calling. I think you'll see a lot more of 2 tight end sets. They've gotten the ball to more fullback tight end Mason Wake at times in the past, but Dallin Holker, who's kind of their number 2 tight end, he is probably the more mobile of their guys. I could see them doing things with him creatively in order to get them in some favorable spots. You know, it's definitely not what BYU wants. It definitely plays into Baylor's hands. But, you know, it comes down to the trenches. They have to find some way to generate a running game against that Baylor front. And they have to do something to help Jaron Hall out. Jaron Hall is an outstanding quarterback who gives you all the upside you could want in terms of foot speed, in terms of arm strength, and he's got great accuracy. He makes good decisions. He protects the ball. But, you know, you got to give him somebody to throw to.
Do they have the horses on defense to slow Baylor down, even though we haven't seen Baylor versus a plus opponent yet in their new skill set?
I'm leaning Baylor on the offensive side. I think Baylor's going to have a good game offensively. But, you know, last year, BYU came in pretty beat up on the defensive line. So just being healthy, even if it's the same guys, that's going to play a big role in Provo. And then when you get into elevation, you know, how's your conditioning for your offensive and defensive lines? Baylor's got more talent there than BYU does, but one of these teams is used to elevation, the other one's not. That could also be a factor. So while Baylor was able to run and stop the run emphatically last year in Waco, between injuries and elevation, BYU probably won't win that matchup, but it might be a lot closer to where other factors might help the game.
Sam, it was Albany, so I'm not expecting, you know, some great scouting report on what you saw X's and O's wise from Baylor, but what did you see, if anything, that stood out to you?
What stood out to me is Chapin made good decisions, and even with the line not really more so the tight ends, but even without ideal protection at times. And Albany had a couple of good transfers who were all conference pass rusher types at lower levels. So, I mean, some solid pass rushers. I mean, stopping the run was probably going to be where their issue was and has been. You know, I like what I saw from Chapin. There were a couple underthrows that would probably be incompletions or picks against Big 12 play, but, you know, the guy that lit up Oklahoma State's outstanding defense and best defense in years in the Big 12 title game, I'm not worried about him beating single coverage once he gets into a rhythm. I liked what I saw defensively for the most part, except for just rush lane integrity, but that'll come as the year goes on. It came last year as the year went on. You know, Aranda and Roberts will get that fixed.
How about Jaron Hall? Last year, he was just mauled. He had the long touchdown run, and it was spectacular. And yeah, Baylor last year, early Texas State, among others, they struggled sometimes with the mobile guy. Do you feel like that's something that they will be able to contain him a little bit? Is Jaron Hall going to be their biggest threat running the football?
I don't know if he's going to be their biggest threat because they've got a Cal transfer that led Cal in rushing 2 different years and his 230-pound sledgehammer that can really help them in terms of what they're doing on the ground. But Jaron Hall, not so much on the designed runs because I think Aranda and Roberts will have a plan for that, but more so just on scrambles. I think they're going to be in good shape. Just trying. That's going to be where everything's going to come down to because they did a poor job against Albany and Pat Poffensbarger. And even going back to last year against Texas State, Brady McBride, and then Chandler Morris. You know, those games where you let the quarterback escape and buy time and make plays, that's where you run into trouble.
Sam, looking at BYU defensively, what is it that stands out to you?
What stands out to me is they're a bend but don't break team. And what that means is you're going to have to be on your game and execute. They're smart defense. They play physical. They do what they can to try and keep you in front of them. They're a lot like an Iowa State in that regard. The alignment's completely different. But the general tactic of we know we can get big boys. And we know that while we can get the occasional top-line corner safety, for the most part, we're not getting the guys that are going to anchor a 4x100 relay team. So we need to scheme around that. Last year, they kind of copied what the Patriots did to the Rams in the Super Bowl against the Rams wide zone, where they'd have 6 guys up on the line and 1 linebacker behind them. Worked wonderfully for the Patriots, but their D-line just got pushed around in Waco, so it fell apart pretty quickly for BYU, and it left some predictable coverages.
What did you not like, if anything, against Albany?
I didn't like that you gave up some negative plays to some of the aggressive stunts and blitzes that Albany brought. But, you know, keeping it in context, you're talking about a game where the coaches said, all right, let's not get anybody hurt, and let's treat this as a glorified scrimmage so we can put these guys in game situations, see how they react. Because you got a lot of young skill guys, and you got a lot of young guys on the back end of your defense. How are they handling these game situations?
Sam Bradshaw with us, Sikkim 365 Radio, our college football analyst, one of the handful of them on Sikkim365.com.
So, Sam, how do you see this game going? Do you think it'll be a back-and-forth game, or do you think Baylor or BYU controls it, one or the other?
I think if either team controls it, it'll be Baylor, but I do see it as more of a back-and-forth game. I mean, both offenses are just a pain to get off the field. I mean, if you look at their third down conversion opportunities that they convert either on third down or on fourth down, both of them are 50% or better against quality competition. It's just going to be a chore to get either one of them off the field. I think Baylor ultimately takes it, but you're not slowing that offense down too considerably, even with Puka and Romney gone.
Do you think that them out, would that dramatically, if you pick Baylor to win by 3, 7, 2, whatever, would that dramatically change that?
Dramatically, no, because I think Aaron Roderick, their offensive coordinator, Jaron Hall, their quarterback, and their offensive line are all really, really good at what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it's not that they don't have other good receivers. They're going to find some ways to scheme guys open. But yeah, you might tack on a score or whatever your expectation was. You know, there's just not too many possessions between two teams that take the air out of the ball the way these do.
Special teams, Hankins, good. Obviously, Powers, very good. You have the punt return by Gavin Holmes. Didn't get a chance to see much on the kick returns. The coverage seemed to be okay. You like their edge there at all?
I liked what I saw from the return game. Obviously, it's Albany, so we'll see how well that maintains throughout. But I like what I've seen from special teams during the entire Aranda era. And don't forget Noah Rauschenberg. Many Baylor fans who can remember that upset against TCU in the early Bryles years, TCU, I think, returned one kickoff for a touchdown and then almost returned another in that game. Rauschenberg gets touchbacks almost every time. That is such a just taking the opposing returner out of the game, and it's such a weapon in terms of field position. That is a huge benefit to a defensive team like Baylor.
I'm so glad you brought him up, because that's a terrible oversight for me not to bring him up, because the year before that was a nightmare on, where was it going to go? Just kick it through the end zone, and he does most of the time. And then with altitude, depending on whether there's any wind or not, you think you'd be able to even get an extra oomph on it as well, to just eliminate that from the game.
Absolutely. And you know that if you've got that handled and you've got a really quality punter and quality kicker, it's just another area where it's tough to find a chink in the armor of this Baylor team. And that should pay dividends, not only this weekend, but on into conference play.
Thank you, Sam. Appreciate your time. As always, Sam Bradshaw, he puts up stories. He focuses in on the matchups, one offense against the defense and vice versa. The opponent, of course, Baylor. Next week, Texas State. Tomorrow night, a really fantastic and intriguing matchup between Baylor and Brigham Young. Paul, special teams help you and your Florida State Seminoles win Sunday?
Blocked a field goal and an extra point.
Yeah, I mean, it's the reason, not the reason they won the game, but
it's exactly the reason they won the game.
Absolutely part of the reasons they had a chance to win a game. What was supposed to be was not neutral in New Orleans. When we come back, Paul Catalina's Top 5. Garrett Ross back at our mothership running it today. Again, Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports.
Cars priced right both day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money, and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Tom Albers, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If your financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Tom Albers, 4301 Lakeshore Drive, 254-776-7605. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible challenge. Hi, this is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like First Free Checking, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. The First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics. The team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Shorty
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagney is a homegrown, locally owned pizza place that's out of this world. Everything from the dough, the sauce, the sausage topping is made fresh in-house. Not to mention the amazing pizza pillows, the chicken wings are to die for. Try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries, or tots, plus great specials on food and drink every single day. Shorty's is also the perfect spot to watch the game with your friends. Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby. Tell them Paul sent you by.
This is Paul Catalina's Top 5 at 5:55.
So I saw on Twitter yesterday, there were a lot of people talking noise in college football and lumping in the Queen about the Queen hasn't seen this, the Queen hasn't seen that, never seen so-and-so win this conference title and all that. But I did go back college football wise and look, there's a lot of stuff college football wise in the Queen's lifetime that I don't think we even think about.
96 years.
96 years old that Queen Elizabeth II, probably didn't see because it's not a big deal in England, but was, happened in her life, and she saw a great many things.
She never saw the Cowboys win a Super Bowl, in other words. Right?
But there are teams that won a national championship in the Queen's life that I think a lot of people don't even remember.
Oh, I do.
You might.
Minnesota.
Whose top 5 is it, man?
I didn't know that was part of your top 5.
It's a setup. It's a setup.
Grayson stole it last week. So
yeah.
Okay.
So number 5, 1953. Who won in 1953, Smokey?
1950 Army.
Maryland.
East Coast team.
Maryland won the national championship in 1953.
Did not know that.
No one knows this. Craig, did you know that?
No.
See, there you go. Yeah. Yes. So Maryland, when they say they're a championship winning program, they're not just making it up.
It counts.
Yeah, it counts. Number 4, 1944, 1945 Army. The last time they won.
Is that with Glenn Davis and them?
Yeah, coming off of World War II, too. So that kind of impressive that they had enough guys to win the national title. Or maybe they had more than everybody else. I'd have to go back and look. Number 3, 1990.
Colorado.
And Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
But that's only been 32 years ago, and people forget about that one.
Yeah. No, you're right.
Yeah. Number 2, Syracuse, 1959.
Was that Jim Brown and Ernie Davis?
Yeah. But
I don't know if they played during that time.
Yeah, but Syracuse in 1959 won the national title. And a team that does not get mentioned at all, but Smokey did and ruined it. Minnesota had a three-peat from 1934 through 1937 and a repeat in 1940 and 1941.
I remember them winning a chunk of. They won a chunk.
5.
They won a chunk, and if you're a Minnesota fan, you claim it and you're proud of it.
Yeah, here's some other teams. Just bonus: Texas A&M in 1939, TCU in 1938.
Yeah, that was with Sammy Ball.
Yeah. So
or was that? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So there are a ton. We forget about it. It is interesting to look. In about 1965 or so, college football, not that there was a lot of parity of Minnesota's winning 5 titles, but when college football in the 60s got to really be a thing, it veered into what we see now where there's not a lot of names on the list.
The Ivy League schools have disappeared.
Yeah.
And a lot of others as well. Glenn Davis was the Heisman Trophy winner in 46, and they won 3 national titles with him.
Yeah.
Great player.
And Jim Brown did not play for Syracuse in 1959.
Okay.
He was already gone by then.
Well, that's amazing they won without him.
At best, Ernie Davis was a freshman.
Okay.
So I don't even know how much of an impact he had on that 59 Syracuse squad.
Yeah. So there are a lot. I looked back.
Okay, he did play on that. Okay, see it now. So Ernie Davis, yes. Jim Brown, no. There you go.
All right.
Yeah. So
we learned something.
Yeah, we did.
I did.
Yeah, the Queen has seen a lot, and she saw a lot of. She was just sports wise. She was alive. She was 10 years old when Jesse Owens won gold in 1936. Yeah,
at Berlin Games,
which I think is the most important sports moment.
She would go to Wimbledon,
Yeah,
and be in her seat at Wimbledon. That's a long life.
Wouldn't you get nervous to play in front of the Queen?
Yeah, not necessarily.
I think it'd be pretty damn cool.
Yeah,
it'd be awesome. Playing in a lot of front of other. It was funny watching this documentary on her last night. I was randomly on late and seeing our leaders over the years with her. It's just like such a. Well, it doesn't matter. Like there's like a billion different presidents that she was basically over, but I think they particularly showed Bush, Trump, Biden, Obama. and maybe one or two
Reagan,
others.
maybe. Yeah,
I don't know, but those four, and just I don't know, like he's just so American, like compared to the
as
queen
a princess. She dates back to Calvin Coolidge.
Yeah, but
and
it was
so
all regal and everything, and there are guys just like. It was funny. It was funny to see the difference and kind of how they all carried themselves. And here's this queen who's treated like this very old school way. Everything's very traditional and all that. Is just here comes America busting through with all of our various presidents. I don't know. It was cool. She lived an incredible life. That's for sure.
Does the Queen run England?
No,
the Parliament does, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
The Prime Minister, which they have a new Prime Minister. Actually, Liz Truss is the new Prime Minister in England. So.
You and your stuff with that. That's awesome. I knew Minnesota. That's all I'm proud of. All right. Thank you. And the chat room, the text line, and everybody, our sponsors, amazing. With us since our first day, April 6, 2020. And we continue to grow because of you, our viewers, our sponsors. Thanks to Garrett Ross back at our studio. Emery. Is he putting together the Sports Tonight package?
I think he might already be done.
All right, the Sports Tonight package coming up at 10:30 on the CW channel.
Special BYU preview episode where I took 2 segments from today and 2 segments from earlier the week. So.
All right, good. That'll be perfect. And our pregame, we're back at it tomorrow at 7 inside the studio. We'll be there with much to bring to you. And from start to finish, have so many games that we'll already know about, including some that affect the Big 12 and the power. So whatever the poll might be. For Craig Smoak and Paul Catalina, Ryan Davis, thanks for being here as well. Thanks to Mary Hardin Baylor. We're not done. Midway football in about 35 minutes against Vandegrift. Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. Good night.